So welcome back, and we are going to, I will work a little bit with stanza 7 first, and hopefully this idea of the 49, let's see how often it appears. I think we'll have to go into that just a little bit, and let's see, 49. 49. Oh, there should be. Aha, I see what the problem is. Okay, not a treatise on cosmic fire, but on all the books. 49. Is everything rolling? I think so. All right, Kay, if you're there, I think you're signed up somehow as a not on the panel. I don't know why that should be. I think I'll keep you unmuted in case there's any problem. All right. Hi, we're back. Now let's start with stanza number 11 and see what sense we can make of this. I will use the orange color here for this particular class. Yes, well, we'll do that. Right. Okay. The wheel of life turns within the wheel of outer form. Many of us have worked in esoteric astrology with what's called the wheel of consciousness and the wheel of form. The wheel of consciousness has been turning in the counterclockwise direction, the wheel of form in the clockwise direction. And at our stage of evolution, we are all experiencing two wheels turning against each other. Our form carries us in one direction and seeks to maintain the status quo through rotary motion, and the consciousness seeks to progress and expand. So there's a rending process there. But here he speaks of the wheel of life. They are revolving aspects. The wheel of outer form, in a way, can be considered the revolving aspects of the lower aura. Now, in Cosmic Fire, he does describe the idea that all of our vehicles rotate. Sometimes the word revolve or turn. Sometimes the word revolve is substituted for rotate, but they all turn and they all have their cycle. And what DK is going to suggest is that the outer cycle is slower than the inner cycle. We have to see if we can define this. Now, we can talk about the lower aura of man. We can also talk about the lower aura of the planetary logos or solar logos, in which case, well, we would be dealing only with the dense physical body and the etheric body. Because the dense physical body of the solar logos is the 21 lower subplanes. So that would take the physically dense, the liquid, and the gaseous levels, and they would be rotating. But the etheric body will comprise the inner ethers, the cosmic ethers. So this could have a cosmic meaning, but I think we will be advised to stick with a systemic meaning in terms of the solar system and the solar logos. I mean, if we start talking about the rotation of the vehicles of the solar logos, all of the lower vehicles, we'll be dealing with the cosmic astral plane and with the cosmic mental plane, and I think that's maybe a bit too far for us to go, even though the analogies might be there. So we can think of the human being and the rotating lower vehicles. We can also think, what's happened? Oh, 11. Sorry. Stanza 11, the one we meditated on this morning. Along with everybody sitting here with their coats and hats on. It's interesting. It's just warming up here a little bit. We can also think that the causal body rotates, and I think the secrets of the rate of rotation of these various periodical vehicles. Kind of interesting, the term periodical, because it may imply not only that they appear and disappear at various times, but that they actually rotate in their place or turn in their place. If we could know the measures of rotation of the various vehicles, we would know a lot about the cycles of our lives, and it would assist in our interpretation of astrological factors. If we could know, let's say, what phase of rotation our causal body was in, or our mental body or astral body, etc. I think those cycles will be worked out. So within these outer wheels, of lesser extent, turn the inner and yet more expansive wheels, for instance, the monadic wheel. Maybe there's the triadal wheel as well. Maybe every one of those vehicles, which are monastic, Buddhic, atmic, once they are organized, they will have their rates of rotation. And finally, the great monadic wheel and its vehicle will have its rate of rotation. Now, I think all we can do is propose that those rates of rotation exist. I think we're not in a position to know what they are. I'm going to be careful. I've got some echoing going on, so Kay, if you can sign in on the staff. Oh, no, why don't I just see if that would work here? Sorry, just a moment. Make panelist. I'll do that. Yes. Okay. So that'll put you over there. Let's see if we get the bird sounds and that kind of thing when you're over on in that area. I think so. Uh-oh. I am echoing because of someone, so I'm going to have to see if that helps somewhat. All right, going on. So the question is, what is really rotating? He calls it the wheel of life. Well, more expansive, let's see, the more expansive causal body and even the monadic wheel. Well, the monad carries the life aspect. So is the monad the wheel of life? Or is it the combination of the monad and soul vehicle? How big are these vehicles? We sometimes see pictures of the aura where the causal aura expands far beyond the lower aspects of the aura, and yet, from another perspective, the causal vehicle is very inward when compared with the lower aspects of the aura, and the monadic vehicle, which probably has a still greater radius, if we could begin to detect it, is still a more inward factor. So it's possible that though greater in auric extent, they are still considered to be inward factors rotating on subtler planes within the denser planes upon which the outer vehicles are found. So we have wheels within wheels, and we have to make a decision about what the wheel of life actually may be. I'm trying to confine this to the cosmic physical plane. Whether I'm justified in doing that, I don't know, but at least on the cosmic physical plane, we can find the periodical vehicles of man, and we can find other planes which are closer to our understanding. Now, one thing we have to always bear in mind, and I will put that down here, always bear in mind that planes are great spheres. I've been emphasizing that point, but planes are not pancake-like. They are great spheres containing matter of a certain vibration. So there's a constant rotation of the planes, each at their own rate of speed. And of course, those are going to be secrets of initiation. To figure that out would be an immense help in understanding the cycles that we are subjected to. But not only are the planes great spheres, but the rays are great spheres as well. And what DK seems to tell us is that the planes are rotating from east to west, and the rays are rotating from north to south. And then he describes the patterns, serpentine patterns that are created by the interaction of their rotation, which is an amazing creative interplay. And in a way, they are creating the cross, spherical cross, rotating against each other. So we're going to see some things in this particular stanza which demand the knowledge that the planes do indeed rotate. They are spheres which rotate, and well, we are not going to be able to speak of their rate of speed, but DK seems to imply that the outer rotation is slower. There are many reversals going on in this stanza, and I'll show you some of them in just a moment. But his implication is, DK suggests that the outer spheres are slower in their rotation than the inner ones. This may be true to a certain extent, and it may as well be reversed in certain ways. Sometimes we find greater complexity in the outer planes, but the way DK has translated this stanza, there's greater complexity and numerosity on the inner spheres. So there's a kind of a reversal going on here, and we have to see if we can grasp that. The matter of Fohat circulateth, and its fire hardeneth all forms. Well, Fohat is in a way equivalent to Brahma and to a certain aspect of Agni, and also to the Holy Spirit. Fohat is the creator of matter. So let us assume that is the case. At the first outpouring, Fohat creates what we call, on the cosmic physical plane, matter. At least 7 differentiations of matter, and this we dealt with in one of the stanzas just yesterday, didn't we? That these waves, what did it say? They resolve into solidity. Was it yesterday or the day before? So Fohat is creating the energy substance, which we call matter, which serve as the building blocks for the forms. So the matter of Fohat is that which has been differentiated from root substance and created to uphold the atomic vibration of each plane. Now, when we say it circulateth, what could that mean to us except that the plane itself is rotating? Now, not only are the planes as a whole rotating from east to west, but the subplanes as well are probably keyed to the measure of rotation of the solar planes, and they are rotating at their own rate of speed too. So the molecular planes are rotating, and the atomic plane is rotating. It's probably all keyed in some way, maybe multiples, maybe, I say. It's also musical. In other words, every plane has a key note, and the subplanes have their sub-key notes keyed to the original, or to the atomic plane. And probably this suggests the way rotation also occurs. First, there rotates, presumably, the atomic subplane, which is the, in a way, the measure of the plane as a whole. So the atomic subplane has its own rotation, rotary measure, and the rotations, if I could just write and spell, rotations of the subplanes are correlated to that rate and measure. So it's musical and it's motional. And these are the secrets. You know, exactly what is the rate, exactly what is the key, what are the subtones, what are the subrates. And probably they all rotate together. All of the subplanes rotate together, carried along by a basic measure of the plane itself, the entirety of the plane, the entirety, I'm speculating, entirety of the plane has its own rate and measure. Now, when it says that the matter of Fohat circulates, that really depends on the rotation of the subplane on which it is found. And initially, the matter of Fohat, the matter of Fohat is of the first outpouring. The matter of Fohat is related directly to that which was created by the first outpouring. The molecular matter could almost be called the matter of, you know, if we're being really particular about it, would be called the matter of Vishnu, the second outpouring, because molecular matter is based upon what Fohat has created of atomic matter. And in various combinations and patterns, the second outpouring, which is the form builder, takes those fundamental building blocks and combines them in different ways to create molecular matter, which also rotates. But maybe decay is not being, or the stanza is not being ultra-specific here. We have material conditions, and they do rotate, they do circulate, they circulateth. Okay. Now let's see what else is said here. These are just, you know, initial speculations which get us thinking. And its fire, Fohatic fire, hardeneth all forms. Now we saw that forms were being created in an archetypal sense on the downward arc of the second outpouring, and that they were then approximated on the upward arc. Matter was built into the configuration of these archetypal forms that were prepared on the downward arc of the second outpouring. Well, when you think of astrology, you think of, you know, that which is hard. I guess, you know, the two planets that represent hardness particularly are Vulcan and Saturn. They're both pretty atomic planets in a way. And I'm thinking particularly of Saturn as being the major third-ray Fohatic planet. Saturn involving the differentiation of matter. See, Fohat differentiates, at least in its role in the first outpouring. Fohat differentiates, and Saturn, what's it called? Something like the divine separator. If you were looking for the essential discriminating life, when we're talking about ray lords, these ray lords are found in Shambhala, and so the names of the ray lords can definitely be associated with these shambolic lives, but they can also be associated with lives which are even farther into the solar system. Like every planetary logos is in a sense a ray lord, and so the names of the ray lords can apply very much to these planetary lives and the rays that they convey. Now, Saturn conveys, above all, the third ray. So if we look here at the third ray, somewhere, I don't know what page, something, oh, that's volume 2, wrong book. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, scientific investigation, yeah, it's coming back here in the 60s. The Lord of Memory, the divine separator. Here's a name for the third ray life, the discriminating essential life. It takes things apart. It has to do with the law of disintegration. So it's the discriminating essential life. I'll change that. Not the essential discriminating life. So when we talk about Fohat, the planet that has a strong connection with Brahma and with Fohat and with the Holy Spirit is Saturn. And Saturn is the hardener. It creates the outer shell. It creates the strong structure that can withstand the various pressures. So the fact that Fohat, the energy of fire of Fohat, is hardening the forms is related to Saturn. Saturn rules the sign of crystallization, which is, what is it? Capricorn. Not cosmic astral plane, but Capricorn. Crystallization. Okay, why don't I spell that correctly? Okay, there. So we're going to be taught in this stanza about how form is created, how form is rigidified and crystallized, and how form is destroyed. This is all about the circulation of the forms and the movement of the great activity under the third aspect towards a point of peace. Eventually, the stanza ends in the idea of peace. Okay, so let's just read that once again. Maybe actually, you know, what I should do. Stanza 11. Just reading the first part straight. The wheel of life turns within the wheel of outer form. The matter of Fohat circulateth, and its fire hardeneth all the forms. The wheel that is not glimpsed moveth in rapid revolution within the slower outer case till it weareth out the form. Okay, so that's read straight, and now, you know, the analysis. So far we have the idea of Fohatic building blocks, the essential monadic essence circulating. And we also have the idea, I think, of the elemental essence built by the second outpouring also circulating. And meanwhile, forms are being built, and the fire of Fohat, which is Saturnine in many respects, is hardening these forms. Now that's a preparation for another process. Okay. The outer wheel is not glimpsed, that is not glimpsed, moveth in rapid revolution. Now remember yesterday we talked a lot about the first aspect and the monadic essence of things being hidden away. And we talked about the blessed ones, and we looked at the first three stanzas of the blessed ones, and in every case the monad was hidden until it was released and revealed and released. So the first aspect is hiding away. Even in the jewel in the lotus, the inner fire, or jewel in the lotus, representing the first aspect, is covered by the three lemon yellow synthesis petals, which are Buddhic in their nature. So first aspect remains very occult for a long time. And then I pointed out the idea of the 7 purposes of Sanat Kumara that we read about in Esoteric, in the rays and the initiations. And the first purpose is the most occult and most hidden and is known only to Sanat Kumara himself and to no one else. You know, just refreshing our memory on that. Um, pain. Pain is good. Okay, let's see. Pain and himself. No. Sanat Kumara. I always forget where this is. Himself alone. No? Himself. It's somewhere around page 250 or so of the... There it is. Okay. It's about page 200. I'll try to memorize it this time. About 241. Look at this one. Talking about the first purpose hiding away. And the first aspect being hidden. As a matter of fact, the other Ray Lords say, please, Ray Lord number 1, don't interfere with my process until I've completed it, because otherwise you're going to come in and disrupt the whole thing and wait till it's ready and then apply the power of destruction. I remember how Master DK described the interventions of the first ray type of human being, the destroyers, as being very negative. And he even included the earlier incarnation of one of his teachers, namely Akbar of India, who was Master Morya. I thought that was interesting. He says they have so often disrupted well-laid plans which had not come to fruition, and basically threw everything out of rhythm and made achievement impossible. This was the intervention of warriors who did not have a lot of wisdom and simply were following their own egotistical desires for conquest. Now, obviously, the Ray Lords know a lot more. They're shambolic beings, or they are the 7 spirits before the throne in our solar system, and so they have a great sense of timing. We're told that the sense of timing from Shambhala is exquisite, and also the measurement of just how much energy a touch of Shambhala is allowed to carry is exquisitely measured. So very different from these human conquerors that only care for themselves. But that's an abuse of the first ray. So anyway, hold off and don't reveal yourself, and don't let us feel your energy prematurely, because you will disrupt what we are trying to do. This is what the other rays basically say to the first Ray Lord. Here is the unknown, unseen, unheard purpose of Sanat Kumara. It is the secret of life itself and is known only to him alone. In its initial phase of this new expression, it works through the Manu and the Master Morya. It is that which veils the central mystery, which all esoteric schools, if true to their inaugurating impulse, will eventually reveal. What this is we do not yet know, but it is hinted at in Rule 13. Okay, so the hidden first aspect of divinity, and now going back to our part of the stanza we're studying, the wheel that is not glimpsed, that's the whole point, it's hidden. A glimpse is a vision of something, a quick vision of something. You catch a glimpse of something. Moveth in rapid revolution within the slower outer case till it weareth out the form. Now, if we take this from the microcosmic point of view, then our vehicles are moving slowly. We can't really see the dense physical vehicle in rotation, but it could be that the etheric vehicle is in rotation. Certainly the astral vehicle is, our mental vehicle is, and each is a little faster than the other according to this. The rotation of our causal body might be, from this way of looking at things, faster yet. Sometimes when I think about these greater wheels, I think they are both faster and slower at the same time. I know that sounds paradoxical, but when you start rising up the planes, the numbers get smaller. You know, down on the, and I'm going to show you that this is contradicted in this particular stanza. When you're on the third subplane of the mental plane, there are 49 groups, second plane 42 groups, first plane 35 groups. Then you rise to the Buddhic plane, there are 28 groups. Then the Atmic plane, there are 14 groups. And then we go to the monadic plane, there are 7. So the numbers are decreasing. And these decreasing numbers suggest larger structures which move more slowly. But anyway, just following what is said here, there are periodical vehicles, there are wheels, there are vehicles that are rotating at different rates of speed, and the inner ones are rotating more rapidly, he is telling us, with a slower outer case. We can think of this in terms of man, and we can think of this in terms of the solar planes as well, of the cosmic physical plane. Now, this idea that it weareth out the form, what is suggested to you by that? It moveth in rapid revolution within the slower outer case till it weareth out the form. What is suggested to you there? Okay, till it weareth out. Now, what form is being worn out here? What form generally wears out? See, in my view, anyway, our physical body is the first to go. Our astral body lasts longer, doesn't it? It was there before birth, maybe not organized or in the same condition it was, when we left the last life, but it was there. It persists for a number of years, however many. We cannot pontificate about that, but it lasts until it too is worn out, I'll bet. Because what do we say? Oh, I've exhausted all my desires. Then it's time to move on to the mental plane, isn't it? And we oftentimes say, oh, my vitality is exhausted. So that is a wearing out of the etheric physical body, followed by a slower wearing out of the astral body. And even if you go to Devachan and spend time in this heaven world on the fourth subplane of the mental plane, even those mental desires and intentions, so to speak, become exhausted. And then what? Then you are ready to do what? Your center of consciousness is transferred where after Devachan? Yes, exactly. Okay. Someone try to remind me. I forgot this one this time, unfortunately. Oh, darn it. All right. I have so many buttons to press that if I forget this one, let me know, Okay. Yes, into the soul. The center of consciousness is retracted back into the central fire. And you are the human ego within the causal body for a certain amount of time before reappropriating the vehicles. Now, he says that when you're a primitive human being, you're not really spending much time in the subtle worlds at all, and not even in the soul. You just come right back. Rapid incarnations. But later, when you have something to work up, you might spend quite a bit of time, and he's not given us, nor do we know, how long that center of consciousness will spend within the causal body afterwards, but even at length, the causal body gets worn out, doesn't it? In other words, the rotating of this inner wheel within the causal body, and we could call it the inner wheel of the triad, or even the inner wheel of the monad, wears out the causal body until you've exhausted all of that which you can accumulate, and it presents itself as a limitation. So I find this very interesting that rapid wheels, more rapid wheels within slower wheels, wear out the slower wheel. I think that's the principle that we can gather from this. Friction, yes, exactly. We are dealing with a frictional wearing out. Now, when two things rub against each other, it's what we call, you know the word, wear and tear. That's what we call it. But the interesting thing is that, well, again, I suppose it's possible for some people to somehow have the physical body endure while their mind and emotions go to pieces. That is possible. But the idea suggested here is that the inner vehicles are stronger than the outer vehicles. That is what is, I think, suggested. Inner vehicles stronger. Let's ask it as a question. Certainly the causal body has immense resilience, doesn't it? I mean, how long does it take to wear out a causal body? 25 million years? Think of it. And yet, in other words, the outer body is so loosely constructed, isn't it, that it wears out every 70, 80, 90 years, generically. As the circumstances get older. Okay, the mental body's wearing out. Or is it the brain that cannot receive what the mental body has? See what I mean? Is the mental body, I mean, it's possible to have a mad, disorganized mind, of course. But it seems to me that on these inner planes there is a greater durability. And it's suggested here. Well, certainly when we get to the causal body, we know it lasts millions of years. It's not destroyed, but comes the time of its destruction. And of course, the vehicle that is the most permanent at this stage is the monadic vehicle, isn't it? It's the one that endures. Let the word go forth, I still persist. That's the first ray word that goes forth. So anyway, we just need the principle. Like I was reading again, DK says, look, I can't really give you the details of all these things. Only and if you carry out this analogy in too fine a manner, you will be misled. So I want to give you basically the trends and the larger general understanding. Even if we could capture just that, we would be in good shape. So anyway, there is wear and tear. The inner vehicle is stronger, and I just want to say here, whoops, I lose track of my cursor. Certainly, the causal body is stronger than all the personality vehicles. And the monadic vehicle is stronger than the causal body and more enduring. Now, the question is, but are these inner vehicles really, what he says, faster in rotation? I don't see anything to do here but just to accept his word on that regarding inner planes, that they rotate faster, and inner vehicles. We do know this. We do know that the matter on the higher planes is of a higher frequency in its vibration than matter of the lower planes. That much is pretty clear, because that's the reason we just don't perceive that with our normal senses, because of its increased frequency. The 49 fires burn at the inner center. Well, I kind of went off on a quest for 49 here. He has quite a few references on the number 49, and they are somehow they're very important. Not that we have time to go through all of them. I will just say that normally we think about the 49 fires related to the Rajadeva lords, the 49 fires of Brahma. But just the way there are Buddhas of activity, Buddhas of love, and Buddhas of will, so there are 49 fires of Fohat, which are relatively well developed and are found on all the planes and subplanes. There are 49 rays and subrays, and 49 spirits of darkness with all of their divisions. That's very interesting. It's a very occult and rarely seen aspect of cosmic fire, where he actually differentiates these three sets of 49s according to the third, second, and first rays. So normally the 49 fires are considered related to the third aspect and to Fohat. Now, but what is really remarkable to me is that he gives us a picture of rotating wheels with an inner center to the process. And that inner center contains 49 units. And progressively, as you move outward towards the periphery, towards the outer plane, the number of units becomes less and less. This is exactly the reverse of the way that the groups of souls are numbered. Because the soul groups are numbered, or soul triadal monadic groups, if you will, soul is such a term that you can even use it in relation to the monad, these groups become fewer and fewer and fewer when you go in. But the way he's putting it, the 49 are at the center, and he's looking at a peripheral 35 with something in between. So we'll just read it and see what is said. This is not an easy stanza, but generally you think as you read it that you're getting the picture of how the third aspect of divinity, with all of its various calibrated rotations, is operating. Well, they are, well, I guess they all come from the central creator, but they are the fires that are found in the Rajadeva lords and the rulers of the subplanes. They are related to Fohat, and Fohat is creating them. But Fohat, from a certain point of view, is an aspect of our solar logos. There's also a greater type of Fohat, which is an aspect of the cosmic logos, and on and on. But Fohat is the great mover, if you will. He's the whirler. He's the one who is turning rapidly. He's the one who, in a way, is responsible for creating chakras. See, because the other day, if you look around in Cosmic Fire, around in the page 165 to 169, somewhere in there, you're going to see that all the chakras really have their root in the monad. The monad creates all chakras, ultimately, even if it works through the soul to do so. And it's the third aspect of the monad, the activity aspect, which is, I believe, creating these whirling rotary chakras. The 49 fires burn at the inner center. I'm just read what I'll do is just read what's coming, and then a little bit about 49. The 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle or periphery. We are in the world of Brahma, which is threefold in this case, and its center has 49, and its periphery has 35. Now, between the two passeth in ordered sequence the various colored flames. I believe we're dealing with the three aspects of divinity as they rule the three highest planes on the cosmic physical plane. So during the attempt to explain some of this, we're going to be switching back and forth between conditions on our cosmic physical plane and conditions in the microcosm man. And I wish I could say that they were perfectly sequential, but they don't seem to me to be. Now, here are some statements about the number 49. The fires which were 49 in number proceeded then to do their work, and the prison bars grew firm as steel. In other words, now we're talking about hardening the forms. Remember how Fohat hardens the forms, the fire of Fohat, and that's what's happening. Prison bars are being created by this Fohatic, and then that's like going back to the AUM, isn't it? The AUM is what fixes form in place and what imprisons the consciousness and life within the form. So prison bars are being created by Fohatic form crystallizing power. But time persisted, and the seven, each on his own lot, began to grow too large for the confining bars, which suggests to me that Jupiter is at work and that the second aspect of divinity is outgrowing the form. Now, you know, we're getting kind of a montage here of different ways of looking at 49. That's what we're going to get when we go through this. I didn't have time this morning to complete the whole compilation on 49, but we'll just get an idea. 49 words relate to the 49 subplanes or fires. Now, those are Fohatic, because we're dealing with planes and subplanes. We're in the Devic realm. We're in the realm of substance. We're talking about the Rajadeva lords and the 6 subsidiary devas that are operating. Rajadeva? Oh, well, he just calls them solar words. He says they're not going to be given. But what they are in a way conveying the quality and keynotes of each one of the subplanes found on the cosmic physical plane. They are. That's exactly what they are. They are words of power. That's exactly it. Okay. These again are committed to the 49 builders of the sacred fires. So we're passing on the sound to the builders on the planes. Here's another one. We're just trying to get some idea of how 49 is used, because we're finding 49 at the center of the wheel, when, usually it's considered like a peripheral number. The question of electric manifestation of the Akasha on the 7 planes has therefore to be studied in its 3 main divisions, then plane by plane, or the 7-fold consideration, and finally as the 49 fires. So we're talking about electrical manifestation, and the Akasha is a general term, not just meaning monadic matter, but all substance of the cosmic physical plane. Throughout, it must be recollected that the subject is still further complicated by the factor of time, which brings these 49 fires at different stages, under different spheres of influence, and under the 3 laws of the cosmos. So there's a great permutation going on with respect to the 49. We're not yet at that climactic moment when all 49 are blazing and you have the absolute consummation of the Soto Logos. Now this I thought was an important one. In connection with Brahma Fohat, 3rd aspect, right? Holy Spirit. In connection with Brahma, we have the spirit aspect of Brahma animating the 3 higher subplanes of every plane, or the first fire aspect. Now yesterday we talked about the importance of the number 4, because the 4 ethers were sitting on top of the 3. But from the Brahmic point of view, 3 are sitting atop the 4. And when we look at the cosmic physical plane, the logoic plane, the monadic plane, and the atomic plane are the 3 factors which represent the spirit aspect of Brahma. Now, since we're dealing with the 3rd aspect, we're talking about Brahma, these first 3 planes are very important, and they are going to be the ones on which the 49, 42, 35 are found. The first 3 planes of the cosmic physical plane will be Brahma. His soul aspect, see, basically, these are the 3 persons of the Trinity. The Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, okay? So the Soto Logos has 3 aspects. They are the 3 persons of the Trinity, and DK is saying they are all great beings. They have their own chakras, their own centers, and they are located, these chakras, in certain places on the cosmic physical plane. So normally, we think about planetary logoi. Where are the chakras of the planetary logoi, we say, okay? And we discussed that yesterday. Usually they're considered to be located on the 4th or Buddhic plane, but there are reasons to think that higher planes may be involved. Or we think about the Solar Logos. Where are the Solar Logos' etheric chakras? And then we try to find them. But we don't so much think about the 3 persons of the Trinity, who are beings who are intermediary between the planetary logoi and the Solar Logos. Where are their chakras? And he's kind of telling us that now. Where are their fires? That's what this seems to be about. The soul aspect of Brahma is found on the 4th subplane of each plane, whereon are situated the etheric centers of all manifested entities, but not all of them. We learned that in the human being, only our lower etheric centers are situated on the lowest, only our lowest are situated on the 4th ether, and others higher. His substance aspect is primarily contacted on the 3 lower subplanes. So what you have with Brahma, 3 above, 1 in the middle, 3 below. And this will be maybe important when we're looking at this wheel that DK is talking about, with the 49, 35, and by inference 42 in the middle centers. Hence we have the 49 fires of matter. And that's what I think we're talking about. We're not talking about the 49 rays. We're not talking about the 49 spirits of darkness. We're talking about something that is quite developed. It was developed in the previous solar system, and it now exists. Only the Buddhas of love are only now gathering. So all of the ray 49 are not yet with us. And as far as the 49 spirits of darkness, there's a lot of latent. It's latent. It's not developed at all. Okay, hence we have 49 fires of matter, or the 7 fires of each plane. the union of the higher three and the lower three, producing that blaze, which we call wheels of fire, or the centers on the fourth subplane of each plane. Okay, the next little section here is from Cosmic Fire around page 533, where he's talking about all these beings that have a different number of permanent atoms. How many permanent atoms do we have on the cosmic physical plane? Do we have 6 or do we have 5? Depends on how you count, right? Is the mental unit a permanent atom? That would make 6. But anyway, the greater the being, the fewer the number of permanent atoms he has on the cosmic physical plane. So there's this marvelous list right there, right on 533, 532 in there, where he gives you all these strange beings. They are really, you've never heard of them in your whole life. You know, here they are running around our solar system, and they're completely unknown to us, and he's telling us how many different permanent atoms they have on the cosmic physical plane. How, you know, a solar logos has how many permanent atoms on the cosmic physical plane? What do you think? Being a great being. Only one, of which Saturn is the symbol, the physical permanent atom. And I think the planetary logo are the same way. Anyway, it's very worth reading. As a matter of fact, it's so worth reading that we read it once, but it has disappeared into the night of time. In other words, it happened about 3 years ago. Okay. So, there are 8 groups of solar entities who form the subjective life of the 7 centers in the body of Brahma. Now, we're talking about Brahma. That's why I'm emphasizing Brahma and the 49. So these are solar entities who are actually ensouling the chakras in the body of Brahma. They are less than Brahma. They are less than the solar logos. I'm not exactly sure who they are. You know, when I encountered them here, this is the first I'd ever heard of them. Viewing him as a separate cosmic entity dissociated from his 2 brothers, Vishnu and Shiva. They are the 7 sons of Fohat, with the 8th son included. So this is kind of interesting. I think he may be telling us that the Rajadeva lords are ensouling the 7 major chakras in the body of Brahma. Whatever this, they are solar entities. The Rajadeva lords are solar entities. And they are the final differentiation of the 49 fires prior to their union with the fire of Eros, as HBB expresses it. Eros is more the love aspect. It generally means that. So there's going to be a union of the fires of Fohat Brahma with the fires of Eros, which are more like rays. So I thought this was interesting, that these Rajadeva lords are actually ensouling the centers in the body of Brahma. I'm not going to do too much with this because, you know, obviously it goes on, the whole compilation. But this is the differentiation of the 3 49s. The 7 fires form the 49 fires. The 7 heavenly men, now that's Fohatic, okay? I'll put that down, Fohatic. The 7 heavenly men, who are the 7 major planetary logoi, manifest through 49 lesser rays. That's that 49. The 7 spirits of darkness show forth as 49 existences. And sometimes when DK uses the generic term existences, he's talking about a very high being who is operating on the first aspect. A day or so ago, we read about different kinds of Buddhas. There were globe Buddhas, chain Buddhas, and scheme Buddhas. And when he was describing one or the other of the higher Buddhas, again, he used the term an existence, because he was not going to specify it. Okay, well, anyway, they were very important. The devas of the system are divided into 49 groups, the 49 fires. So I guess what I'm saying here, and we could go on studying 49, and we could study 49 with respect to all three aspects of divinity, but let's just say that the 49 that are closest to us and are most developed are the Devic 49, having to do with substance and with Brahma. And so what I'm trying to do is locate the meaning of 49 in this stanza. And I think the 49 fires that are found at the center are 49 fires of Brahma. Why they should be considered to be at the center and not distributed all over the plains, well, maybe they are both. Okay. We are told that 35 vortices of fire make a master. Now, when you hear that, here, let me see if I can just find that so I don't misquote it. Vortices 35. Okay? Here it is. The 49 whoops. No, that's not it at all. The next one. Here it is. The bringing into activity from latency of the seven centers on all planes, beginning from the bottom upward, until the centers according to ray and type are interrelated and coordinated. There are manifest 35 vortices of fire in the perfected adept, all of radiant activity and all interacting. Now, when you read that, vortices of fire, doesn't it sound like it? What does that suggest to you? That there are 35 vortices of fire of the perfected adept. Because if we follow this hint correctly, we're going to be able to place the 49, the 35, and that which exists between them. So when you read this about a master, that there are 35 vortices of fire in the perfected adept, what does it suggest to you? Excuse me. Okay, well, vortices of fire. How many chakras do you have? You have 7 major chakras. There's 1,000. There's 1,000. Yeah, all of these, etc. So there are chakras, major, minor, and minute. Okay, so, you know, like Melvin Artley's book, Bodies of Fire, 1,000 Points of Light. Okay, so there are many, many energy centers, but always there are 7 sacred planets, 7 sacred logoi, 7 sacred chakras, blah, blah, blah. So we have, generally speaking, 7 major, and even 7 major head centers, which could be even considered the 7 major chakras, but the number is 7. 5 times 7 is 35. What is a master in relation to the number 5? 5th initiation. And what has the master done in relation to the number 5 in relation to the planes of the cosmic physical plane? Maybe that's not a very good question. There are 7 solar planes on the cosmic physical plane. What has the master achieved? Well, maybe 5 are gone. Maybe 5 have been somewhat subdued. Maybe the master is spread across 5 solar planes. Maybe the master has achieved a reasonable focus on the atmic plane, because 35 vortices of fire make the adept, perfected adept. So basically what they're saying is, now you're rid of your causal body, you've got a mental vehicle, you have a Buddhic vehicle, you have an atmic vehicle, and every one of them has 7 main vortices of fire. In other words, a master has mental chakras, probably built around the monastic permanent atom. He has buddhic chakras, he has atmic chakras, and on most charts, or almost all charts, you don't see any chakras on the atmic or buddhic plane, do you? And yet 35 vortices of fire make the master. Okay, now the reason I'm emphasizing this is that a master stretches all the way to the atmic plane. So, when we talk about the periphery of this wheel that is under discussion now, the 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle of the periphery. We are working in the spirit vehicle of Brahma. And this is the outer of the 3 spirit vehicles of Brahma. It's the atmic plane. It's the atmic plane. See, 35 fits. And the 49 fits with the logoic plane. 7 times 7. And in between is something else where the colors are going back and forth because we're dealing with the second ray in the monadic plane. And its number is 42, I believe. In other words, 42 vortices of fire make the Chohan of the 6th degree. 49 vortices of fire make the Chohan of the 7th degree. So we're dealing with the upper 3 planes. One way of looking at it, we're dealing with the upper 3 planes when we're dealing with this stanza, and they are the highest aspect of Brahma, the 49, the 42, and the 35, with the 35 being on the outside and the 49 being at the center, which, as I say, is just the reverse of how we usually number groups as we rise through the planes. With Brahma, it seems that there's a concentration of a greater number at the center. And, it's just upside down. So, I'll just take that at face value for the moment and try to ponder on it, and see what it can mean. The 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle of the periphery. Now, here's a question that just occurred to me. Does the atmic plane, I'll put it like this. Just as the third ray includes all the 4 rays of attribute, do these 35 fires include all the fires of the lesser planes? I'm not really prepared to answer that. I just want to put it out there as a question. Right now we've got 3 wheels. So that in relation to the logoic plane, if we consider that the innermost wheel, and planes are wheels, there are 49 fires. In relation to the atmic plane, there are 35, so one would expect 42 in relation to the monadic plane, which is in the middle. I hope we all can see kind of what I'm driving at here. Here it is. Whoop, wrong one. Okay, I'm talking about these 3 planes. And I'm attaching the number 49 to the innermost plane, which is most rapid, logoic. 42 to the monadic plane, where bands of color are moving back and forth. It's a qualitative plane. And the 7 great differentiations of color and the 7 rays are found there, along the second aspect. And here are the 35 on the spiritual, nirvanic, or atmic plane. It's the outer circle. So I'm looking at these 3 now, because I think the stanza is telling us about these 3, with the inner one rotating most rapidly, second most rapidly, third most rapidly, and so forth. Now, we can, in a few minutes, we can try to figure out why DK is actually presenting this particular stanza. Between the 2 of the 49 and the 35 passeth in ordered sequence the various colored flames. Now, I like that idea, in ordered sequence, because that is the seventh plane from a certain perspective. In other words, on the second plane, on our monadic plane, the number 7 is very important. And when I read order, I read 7. So going over here to a picture on page 35 again of esoteric astrology, here it is. Notice the number 7. When you count down from the plane starting on the cosmic astral plane, the number of this monadic plane are 2 and 7. Also 6 is there. It's another qualitative number, a number that relates to the quality of life rather than to appearance or to life. So it's a merging, blending plane where a lot of order occurs. And when you look upon the monadic plane, according to these charts, you get 7 great groups. Number 7 is very important there. And there's an orderly exchange of color going on between the 49 fires and the 35 peripheral fires. He's going to explain some amazing, this is really an occult stanza. He's just basically explaining to us the dynamics of the wheels within the wheels. To have a, yes, it would be, but all we have at the moment is our charts of this kind. But we have within our group 1 or 2 artists that are very esoteric in their understanding, and they might be able to render that. But first we have to be clear about the conception, and that's what we're trying to, you know, obviously if you're going to draw the right kind of illustration, you need clarity of conception, but of course clarity of conception would help, the right kind of illustration would help us get clarity of conception. So anyway, we've got these 42, an ordered sequence of various colored flames. Now there's got to be at least 7 colored flames for the 7 rays, at least that. At least 7 colored flames for the 7 rays, and maybe 42 flames of varying hue. Maybe 42 is the number. You know what's always interesting to me? When I think of the second ray, I don't think of a point like the first ray. I don't think of a point like the third ray. I think of a strand. A strand. Okay, I am a point of light within a greater light. I am a stream, a strand of loving energy within the stream of love divine. I am a point of sacrificial fire, focused within the fiery will of God, and thus I stand. This is the mantra of the disciple, right? Notice, a point of light, a point of sacrificial fire, third ray, first ray, and what's in between? A strand of loving energy within the stream of love divine. You know, it's kind of the Deva's stretch. So, I don't know. The funny idea is I feel that Devas have plastic bodies. Well, you know what? I don't mean plastic. I mean elastic. Yeah, elastic. That's it. They are able to stretch across a distance, and they are the divine feminine. So in a way, they are connected very much with the second ray, form building, whereas man, solid, unstretchable, is connected with the first aspect and destroys, whereas devas build. You know, if you put a deva on the old rack, they're not going to care. They can stretch. You put a human being on the rack, they care plenty. So the elasticity of the body of a deva, you know, they are a point of consciousness within a body of elastic energy. Sometimes I think of a deva that way. Anyway, they have much more give when it comes to their vehicle of expression. So when I think about this, between the two, passeth in ordered sequence the various colored flames, I think of these flames stretching and connecting between these two more solid points of the 49 and the 35. Yes, that devas can grow larger or smaller at will, yes. And that's where we get what is also called in popular magical thought shape-shifting. You know, and in our movies we have a little bit of that, you know. One day Tom Hanks is quite big, the next minute he's minute, you know, in the movie. The idea of being able to change your expansion or extension in space. It's very Devic. And the seventh ray people, who are very closely connected with the Devic kingdom, are into this shape-shifting. And it's an aspect of shamanism too, isn't it? That the shaman can change his shape into whatever. So I think it's a Devic thing to be elastic. Thank you for that word. It's better than plastic. Okay. So this is the area in between. In ordered sequence, because that is the seventh plane from a certain perspective, counting from above on the cosmic astral plane. And there here to me, there's kind of a, within this world of Brahma, a kind of life, quality, appearance trinity that we find from Esoteric Psychology 1. Life at the center, 49, appearance outwardly on the atmic plane at 35, and the quality with all these colors on the monadic plane relating the two. Okay. Now, look, frankly, we still don't know what we're talking about, okay? What we're trying to do here is just get the associations with these wheels and their quality and their numbers and see what the whole point is. Basically, we seem, you know, basically this whole thing is about building, crystallizing, and breaking form over and over again until the forms are suitable. That's what it's all about. Now, we go on to the next. But maybe, you know, in order to, you know, we've been taking things apart so much that it helps to just read what we said. The wheel of life turns within the wheel outer form. The matter of Fohat circulateth, and its fire hardeneth all the forms. The wheel that is not glimpsed, i.e. the monadic or even causal wheel, moveth in rapid revolution within the slower outer case till it weareth out the form. It has so many impacts per unit of time that the outer form cannot take it forever. Good thing, too. The 49 fires burn at the inner center of Brahma, because that's what we're talking about. The 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle of the periphery. So that's atmic. And remember how we read yesterday. AUM is the atmic word, isn't it? And what does that mean? When you start on the atmic plane, you've got 4 planes below you and 5 planes total. What does that mean in the creative process? AUM is the word creative, isn't it? And it creates form. 5 planes are planes of form. In other words, just imagine, here is the atmic plane ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the lord of form. 5 planes are formal planes, and 2 planes are planes of abstraction. So AUM was the word that of the plane where the realm of Brahma begins and the precipitation and manifestation of the archetype above is handled. So we dealt with that yesterday in stanza 2. Om, said the mighty one, and one creation after another, right? But it starts with AUM on the atmic plane. right? Okay, between the two passeth in ordered sequence the various colored flames. So when you think about monads, you think about 7 great sounds, 7 great geometries, 7 great flames. Each one of those big circles is a circle of flame filled with sparks, which are the monads themselves. Now we've gotten that far. Let's look at the next. The great triangles in their just arrangement hold hid the secret of the wheel of life. The wheel of life is the inner wheel, isn't it? The cosmic fire radiates as directed from the second sphere, controlled by the ruler of the merging ray, obviously the second. That but one color blend them, and their unity appear. The cohorts of the third encircling sphere, in varied ranks, mark out the lesser threes. So there's always a connection, isn't there, between the first ray and the third ray, between the first decanate and the third decanate, between the monad and the personality. We call that the antikarana, don't we? The connection between the monad and the personality we call the antikarana. Between your sun sign and the point opposite your sun sign. That's like monad and personality, personality and monad. The 1 and the 3 are always connected. Great triangles in the first circle of life and lesser threes in the outer circle of form on the atmic plane. What I've tried... Yep. Spokes form triangles. It's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. And there's that link between an inner circle and the outer rim of the tire, and the spokes, in a way, are like the second aspect, connecting. See, the second aspect is a great connector. It always is here and there. It is stretched. So a lot of second-rate people are going to find themselves stretched, trying to somehow reconcile this and that. They are the intermediaries between life and the precipitation. All right, now the analysis. The great triangles in their just arrangement hold hid the secret of the wheel of life. Well, you think of the science of triangles. You think of the great zodiacal triangles. You think of the cosmic triangles. Great Bear, Pleiades, Sirius, like that. Great Bear, Little Bear, Pleiades. You think of all the triangles that DK has given to us that are of a zodiacal nature, a super zodiacal nature, and you begin to think that this inner wheel has something to do with those great stellar arrangements. Now, where is Shambhala located? Located, so to speak. Are you going to tell me the Gobi Desert? In a way, in a way. There's probably a systemic etheric precipitation of Shambhala in the Gobi Desert, probably. But generally, when you think about Shambhala, you could say, well, it has 4 gates or 4 doors. So maybe all the cosmic ethers. But when you think about the council chamber or the inner chamber of Shambhala, where do you think it's located? What plane? I mean, it's got to be the highest, doesn't it? It's got to be the logoic plane, doesn't it? And even probably the highest levels of the logoic plane. Sanat Kumara is a cosmic mental being. However, we're talking about him coming to this planet and demonstrating in an etheric manner. And that's one of the things that I always love, because people say, well, the Earth globe is just made of Earth. Well, then what's Sanat Kumara doing here? Since he is on the logoic plane, if it's just made of Earth. You see, in other words, I've proved to myself, or at least to my own satisfaction, that these globes are not just made of one kind of matter only, and that the Earth globe has all the layers of matter. within the solar system, allowing Sanat Kumara to work in a very high atmosphere with respect to the Earth globe, namely on the logoic plane. You know, because sometimes in the theosophical presentations, you get the idea of homogeneous matter in a globe. This is a solidly dense globe. This globe is etheric. This globe is astral. And I think they're just cutting off the whole top layer of every globe lord when they do that. You kind of get what I mean there, because globe lords are beings, solar beings that are manifesting through a globe. They're great beings. How can they just manifest through water, just through density, just through ether? They have all these different principles. They need it all. Anyway, Sanat Kumara came to our planet, and he's here on our globe, and he's here in his cosmic etheric vehicle on our globe. Anyway, that's just a little aside. So when I say, where is Shambhala located? Let's call it the logoic plane. And to a certain extent, the monadic, atmic, and buddhic planes. The 4 gates to Shambhala. 4 doors to Shambhala, fourfold Shambhala, and yet very much on the logoic plane. Okay. Now, we move on and try to interpret this about these great triangles in just arrangement. Now, when I think of just arrangement, boy, I certainly think just arrangement. I think of Libra and the 7th ray and Shambhala. You know, Libra is the door into Shambhala. Libra is the royal road into Shambhala. Shambhala is the center of perfect peace. Libra, again. So Libra is very important in terms of this highest center. It's also the 7th sign of the zodiac. So if you start and you number the planes from below to above, logoic plane becomes Libra. You could also start the other way. The Sea of Fire, Aries, and then the lowest plane becomes Libra. So just arrangement, to me, suggests Libra and the 7th ray. Libra, the sign of archetypes. If you look at what Dane Rudyard and Mark Jones said about the very first degree of Libra, maybe you'll look that up in the Sabian Symbols book, you'll see the perfect archetype demonstrated in the symbolism of the first degree of Libra. So we have to determine whether this wheel of life is to be interpreted in a cosmic or solar systemic sense. I dealt with that. We could go to the cosmic perspective, but I think staying within the solar system is more practical. The wheel of life represents the inner sphere, the sphere logoic. And now let's look. I want to ask you something. In your opinion, is Shambhala amorphous? Amorphous without form. Amorphous means deprived of form. Is Shambhala amorphous? What do you think? You would think so, because sometimes it says Sea of Fire. Okay, so the logoic plane is called the Sea of Fire. So is that fire all over the place in chaotic form and blah, blah, blah? You know, like just so everything is formed on the monadic plane, but then you get into the Sea of Fire and it's all chaotic fire. So maybe it's not chaotic fire. And maybe great triangles are to be formed or found. Because he just said, didn't he? What was the statement? Great triangles in their just arrangement hold hid the secret of the wheel of life, which we can look at as the logoic plane. Okay? Now I want to read a description of Shambhala from the energy perspective. Great triangles. Okay, what does it say? Shambhala. It is a world of pure energy, of light, and of directed force. It can be seen as streams and centers of force, all forming patterns of consummate beauty, all potently invocative of the world of the soul and of the world of phenomena. It therefore constitutes in a very real sense the world of causes and of initiation. It doesn't sound chaotic to me. Even though it is not form the way we usually think of form, these great archetypal causal patterns of energy are found in Shambhala. And so when it says about great triangles characterize the sphere of life, the wheel of life, it makes sense to me as the innermost area of Shambhala. The great triangles in their just Libran arrangement, perfect seventh ray, hold hid the secret of the wheel of life. Order from chaos, O pilgrim, on the way of death. This is the way for you. Love, dynamic will you have. Love you must learn. The right use of destruction for the furtherance of the plan must be the way for you. Adherence to the rhythm of the planet will release this hidden blessed one and order bring. First ray monad, Shambhala. Order, planetary rhythm. See, everything in perfect order in Shambhala. And that's why so often these first ray types just really love the perfect manifestation through orderly process of the highest energies. Because right up at the very top in Shambhala is this tremendous order. And when he says great triangles are there in just arrangement, I'm thinking about almost like Shambhala, like a crystal, like crystalline arrangement of energies, which everything else has to copy. Because Shambhala is the archetype. And Shambhala has the perfect form. And everything else has to try to approximate that form. Okay. So we maybe, you know, let's see, can what place change? Yeah. Well, Shambhala is the place on our cosmic physical plane where planetary purpose is held in its correct design. So those forms, well, what do I know? What can I say about this? But, it's just speculation. Those forms are going to be the last forms to change. They are not going to change much at all. All the rest of the forms, which are moving all the time, have to change in relation to those sustained forms which represent the purpose. So if you're looking for the world of becoming and the world of change, I don't think you look so much to Shambhala. In other words, there might be great movement, but somehow in the movement, the great patterns are sustained. That's why I use the example of the standing wave. A standing wave presents a stable configuration to the eye, and yet there's so much movement within it, and yet it presents as if it's still. I think that's a good analogy to those great archetypal patterns of energy which are sustained in their correct formation, even though there's tremendous movement through them. Shambhala is what we are working toward, is the world of causes. Yes. That's right. We're working towards mirroring the order of Shambhala. That is correct. That is correct. Okay, so now we have the wheel of life. The cosmic fire radiates as directed from the second sphere, controlled by the ruler of the merging ray. This is a little difficult in one way. The second sphere, according to the model that I am presenting here, whether it's correct or incorrect, is the monadic plane. Every plane is a sphere. The monadic plane is generically ruled by the second ray, and by the seventh, and there's some sixth in it as well, depending how you count. But largely the second ray, and Jupiter is the planet that is ruling this sphere. Jupiter in relation to Virgo. The merging ray is obviously, at this high stage, the second ray. Its ruler is the second ray lord, so who, from the planetary point of view, is Jupiter. Is this an interplanetary ray lord like Jupiter or an intraplanetary ray lord? There are both, you know. There are 7 spirits before the throne of the Lord of the world, the planetary logos. Those are intraplanetary ray lords. Intra means inside. Those are intraplanetary ray lords. There are also 7 spirits before the throne of the solar logos, and those are extraplanetary ray lords. So which is being involved here, I don't know, but I think that we have to keep the planetary connection. The cosmic fire ray, because it's cosmic already. Now, yesterday we dealt with cosmic fire, which occurred at 2 different times. Once, that was the other day too, 30 billion solar angels decide they don't want to come in, so there's going to be a big conference, and it's going to involve the cosmic mental plane, where cosmic fire is found. Then, what was the other example? Yesterday's example. It came time for the solar angels to enter between the two, and this time a cosmic note sounded as well as the systemic note, a note from the 5th plane, right? And we say, why, when the number 5 is involved, do we immediately get cosmic suddenly? Because there are these systemic notes, and all of a sudden now we have a cosmic note sounding underneath when we start to deal with the solar angels. And then we said, well, that's because the solar angels really come from the cosmic mental plane, heart of the sun. Matter of fact, I read today that the solar angels the greater solar angels, who when the 4th initiation is taken, go back to the sun, go back to the central spiritual sun. And they are the ones that are going to be breathed forth as the greater planetary logoi in the future, not just to the heart of the sun. So I thought to myself, my God, does that mean that the solar angels of that type go into some kind of sphere that has to do with the monad of the solar logos? Because the monad of the solar logos is the central spiritual sun, one of them anyway. Anyway, when we get to the 4th initiation, maybe we can look up from the fire and see which way the solar angels are going, and figure it out at that point. It's a great life, and my wife is always telling me that, but I believe it. And but maybe we believe it for different reasons. I'm not sure. Anyway, when I think about these great movements of these great and wonderful beings, then my speculative consciousness does inform me that it is a great life. Okay, so here comes cosmic fire again. Where is it coming from, and why is it coming in relation to the 2nd sphere? Cosmic fire radiates as directed, I would ask by whom, maybe by the solar logos, from the 2nd sphere, controlled by the ruler of the merging ray, an internal ray lord, an external ray lord. Why cosmic fire at this point, and why is cosmic fire not mentioned in relation to the wheel of life? And I didn't really answer this question because it's rather difficult. But cosmic fire, as discussed in this book, is generally the fire of the cosmic mental plane, which is qualified by the 5th ray and the 2nd ray. Now look at your own mental plane. Look at your own causal body. Look at your own egoic lotus. What ray is ruling your causal body, egoic lotus? Now I'm not talking about your soul ray. That's different. I'm talking about generically what ray is ruling the causal body on the mental plane. There are three periodical vehicles. Which periodical vehicle is your causal body, egoic lotus? If there are three, it's got to be the second. You just, whether you start from one side or from another, it's going to be the second periodical vehicle. It's the home of the second aspect of divinity on the fifth plane. Okay? So, in a certain respect, when you access solar fire, you are accessing cosmic fire. The solar fire we access is derived from cosmic fire, a combination of the second and fifth rays, as cosmic fire is usually discussed in this book. In other words, this whole book is a continuation of the discussion of the fire of the soul as was begun in the Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. She made a big thing about the returning Nirvanis, the solar angels, whatever name she called them, Agnishvatas. DK gave us many more names, but she really talked about these beings. And DK continues that. So how is the monadic plane then, the monadic sphere, related then to this type of cosmic fire? What could we say? Could we just say, what could we say? How is the monadic plane related to cosmic fire as we have just described it? I'm being a little careful because obviously there's all kinds of cosmic fire. You know, there's cosmic fire by friction, cosmic solar fire, cosmic electric fire. There's all kinds. But generally, when we are dealing with cosmic fire, what do we deal with? You know, as DK presents it to us, we are told of cosmic solar fire as the fire of the solar angels. And so when we're getting solar angelic fire, we're getting the major fire of our cosmic Lord, who is the solar logos, and we're getting that fire from his causal body. We are getting the solar fire from the causal body of our solar logos. And that's what's making all the difference in terms of the Christ force in our life. Yeah. Did I make a mistake? We are told as the fire of the solar angels. Yeah. So basically, DK, he's not so interested. Look at the book. 100 pages is about fire by friction. Then come, what would you say? I mean, you know, 100, 5, 6, 700 pages about solar fire, maybe more. And then a few pages at the end, another 100, a little more, about electric fire. So no question about it, solar fire is getting the lion's share of the attention. Now, the only thing that I can think of here, the second plane, the monadic plane, is ruled by ray 2, which is the same ray as solar fire from the heart of the sun on the cosmic mental plane higher level. So, and it's also, remember we said that solar fire is demonstrated by Agni on 3 planes, 2, 3, and 4. So plane 2, the monadic plane, is the highest of the solar fire planes in the body of Agni. And so I'll just summarize by saying, so the second plane or sphere has a very close relation to solar fire. It is the highest plane of solar fire in the body of Agni on the cosmic physical plane. So anyway, there's a connection, second-ray connection. So, you might say, well, what in the world is cosmic fire? Why does cosmic fire radiate from the second plane? And I'm just trying to say cosmic fire, as we understand it in this book, is mainly solar fire. And this is a solar fire plane. As a matter of fact, you want solar fire, it really is monad, atma, and buddhi, all solar fire. 3 aspects, as we read, Agni and solar fire. All right, now we come to the third one. I realize I'm being very meticulous about this, but otherwise, what does it mean? If we can't even figure out what kind of spheres we're talking about, the numbers give the hint as to what kind of spheres we're talking about. The cohorts of the third encircling sphere in varied ranks mark out the lesser threes. So obviously there's great triangles up here in connection with the highest level of Shambhala, and then there are lesser threes. Now when you look at the does 3 have anything to do with the atmic plane? What has the number 3 to do with the atmic plane? Oh, of course, it's the third plane, right? But what is its symbol? The symbol of the atmic plane, particularly, well, a number of the atmic plane is the triangle. That's the symbol of the atmic plane. What's the symbol of Libra? If you really boil down the Libra, you see, in other words, if you really boil Libra down, it also becomes a triangle. And if you look in the sky at night at Libra, it's a perfect triangle. So the lesser threes are reflected here. Shambhala is very much the center of peace, the center of perfect archetypes, but then here's a reflection on the third plane, the atmic plane, which is like it's like Brahmic Shambhala. It's like the Shambhala of Brahma, because it's the top of Brahma. So Libra is the third ray in the triangle, and it's reflecting these greater triangles on the first level. Only the monadic plane is different, and that's sort of like the meat in the sandwich, It's the soft stuff between the 2 harder areas. The word cohort is very often used in relation to devas, which are relatively lower and we relate to the third aspect. Well, the third aspect is working through the third plane. And these are called lesser builders. So now we have lesser triangles and lesser builders, lesser threes and lesser builders. They're pretty big builders, but in terms of the higher ones, they're lesser. So we have lesser threes and lesser builders. The atmic plane, I think, is the third encircling sphere here. And then I talked about the associations. Higher triangles on the wheel of life are reflected in lesser threes in the outer atmic wheel of form. Of course, they have higher implications as well. And this I read to you before. In connection with Brahma, we have the spirit aspect animating the 3 higher subplanes of every plane. So what's our picture so far? What have we got? What stays in our mind? There's an outer wheel, there's an inner wheel, and inner wheels. The inner wheels are turning faster. The outer wheels are turning slower. Because the inner wheels are turning faster, they have an effect on the outer wheels which wear them out until they finally disintegrate. I was thinking about what does it mean to age, to become older in the outer form. it probably has a lot to do with the refinement of that form. Sometimes I think of aging as a refining process, due to the fact that the inner wheels in my own microcosmic system are receiving greater attention and are wearing out, disintegrating, and yet refining the outer vehicles. So you know how it is. DK says, after you're 50 years old, your soul can work much better through you. You know, in the beginning you have this strong physical body and whatever, and it's getting all that attention, and you're swept away by it, and you ignore your inner life. But, you know, you get a little bored with the outer life. You put more and more attention to the inner process. It begins to heat up. Your inner life heats up. You neglect maybe some of your outer attention to the body and so forth. So the outer body wears out. Is it just because of what you call entropy? It's just going to sag, you know? Or is it because the attention is going to this faster process, which is at once refining the outer vehicle as well, making it, you know, sometimes you look at, they say life begins at 80. You look at some of these really older people, they just glow. You know, maybe their outer vehicle is less strong in the Martian sense than it used to be, but somehow the inner radiation is going right through it until it's finally just burned away and they just disappear. I mean, you know, you can imagine the day will come when the inner fire is so keen that the outer form will just sort of dematerialize because the inner fire is just drawing it in. And as a matter of fact, when we deal with stanza number 13, and when the purple slides through the violet, never to return again, I think we're dealing with that process. The etherealization of the dense nature due to the intensity of the internal fire being drawn upward, the outer being disintegrated, refined to the point that it doesn't even exist anymore. We call that falling apart, but from another point of view, the day will come when it'll just be absorbed. In other words, there won't always be a dense physical nature. As a matter of fact, when I look at the next solar system, I think about it. I wonder whether there's going to be 3 lower layers of density, such as we inherited from the previous solar system. I wonder if it's even going to be visible in that same sense as our solar system is outwardly visible, or at least whether the densest form of matter will even exist. I've wondered about that. Because by that time, our solar logos will be an initiate of the 4th or 5th degree. Now, use the analogy. If you are an initiate of the 4th degree or 5th degree, you don't need to incarnate again, do you? No, but you can make a Maya Virupa through Kriya Shakti. So it makes me wonder what kind of solar system that's going to be, and whether the power of creating will it be a Maya Virupic solar system? That's what I've begun to wonder. And when I've looked at some of these great stars, which are, let's just say, along the line of star initiates, very high. Maybe some of those stars are master stars. Then you begin to wonder about the nature of the star itself. Is that a Maya Virupic star, not created by ordinary means at all, but somehow rapidly precipitated through a very high power of Kriya Shakti psychism on the stellar level? Anyway, the law of analogy makes you think these things. Oh my goodness, we're supposed to go eat. I mean, you know, because lunch is in an hour, and so if we don't have our cake now, it'll be too close. Just a little stretch. Okay, just go stretch. Okay, very good. Just a little stretch. Sorry, I got involved in this. Okay. Excuse me. Yes, come back soon. Don't stay away long. Okay. All right. Okay, friends, what we're going to do, I don't have the panelist unmuted, so if you're moving around, if you're moving around, just mute yourself. And this is quite a deep section. Is there anything anyone would like to say about this so far? I may not go out on a break. I'll just talk to you for a few minutes if you would like. Just raise your hand if you have something you want to say. Now, of course, if you're a panelist, you can just speak. But if you're in the attendees group, then if you have something you want to say at this point, you can raise your hand. Of course, I forget, how it is in the United States. It's pretty late.
Michael.
Yes, Tuya?
Michael?
Yes? Eleanor, Tuya?
Yeah, I was just thinking, could you talk? Yeah, I was just thinking about these permanent atoms.
Yes.
The beings who has permanent atoms a certain amount, and why in that list we are counting mental unit as a permanent atom? So is that going to evolve, or is that some kind of thing from the past? Because it develops in animal. So
yes, it
I'm
develops.
Just, trying to understand more deeper that meaning.
It looks almost like the mental, a kind of a mental permanent atom divided in two, because it does come. It appears on the mental plane as an evocation, and it's not an atom that is selected by the monad. But in a way, it has 4 parts, and the monastic permanent atom has 3 parts. So if you put those parts together, you get like 1 unit, which is a 7-part unit. I'm over here on page 533 now. And I'm looking to see these different beings.
The lowest one.
Yeah. So he considers the mental unit as kind of a permanent atom.
Yeah. So does it mean that they will like merge in the evolution further, or does it mean that in man,
I believe I believe you're correct. That there will be a merging. When the solar angel and egoic lotus are no longer required, it seems to me that there is a raising of the mental unit up into the monastic permanent atom. Now, when that happens, there are only 3 parts to the monastic permanent atom, or 3 whorls, or spirille, and you kind of wonder whether when this 4-fold nature joins with its higher 3-fold nature, whether that will affect the number of potentialities in the monastic permanent atom. In other words, will it somehow have 7 potencies rather than 3? I mean, it's just speculation. I don't know. But we know that nothing is lost.
So we know that nothing is lost.
Yes.
Because I don't remember about astral and mental.
They have 7. They have 7 worlds. The astral has... No, not mental. Astral has 7, and the physical permanent atom has 7.
4. 7.
Physical 7. So there's 18 in all.
And Buddhic and Atmic, do they have also 7?
3. 3, 3, and 3. So that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
But somehow those potencies of the lower permanent atoms are not lost. I don't know if it affects the structure of the higher permanent atoms, but I do know this, or think this, that when you make a Maya Virupa, you only have your higher permanent atoms to work with. and yet somehow they must be able to generate what the lower permanent atoms generated during the appropriation process. In other words, our astral vehicle is built on our astral permanent atom, our mental vehicle is built on our mental unit, our whole physical nature is built on our physical permanent atom, and they're gone. But yet, they have been absorbed by the higher permanent atoms, and so when you make a Maya Virupa, there must be the potency in those triadal permanent atoms to do whatever the lower permanent atoms used to do. So I don't know the numbers. You know, sometimes in the permanent atoms we have a combination of 3 and 7. We actually even have, let's see, how does it go? Yeah, 3, 4, 3. So it turns out to be 10. 3 major worlds and 7 subsidiary worlds. And it makes me wonder whether when the higher permanent atoms are absorbing the lower ones, whether their spirillae potentials are absorbed. Now, you know, this is a big, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about logoic permanent atom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which one? Which one?
Yeah, I was thinking both the planetary and then the solar logoic. Mm-hmm. So, how in our evolution it would give the idea that also these permanent atoms will somehow absorb our permanent atom?
I think, yeah, it does. It does give that idea, and I think that as part of the absorption process, in relation to the synthesis that occurs at the end of the solar system or towards the end, I think there will be an absorption of the lesser permanent atoms into the greater ones, until really all we have left finally is the sun and its permanent atoms. Yes, it's such a fifth-ray study, you know, and it's just like the physics of millennia ahead. But with
when we think about
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about the Chohan, which is said that they become planetary lives. So is there something then going on in relationship to the absorption to the planetary
level
permanent atom, because you become a planetary life?
Yes, and you actually, in a sense, you can drop all your other permanent atoms when you become a pure monad at the 6th degree. However, again, it seems to me that there is an absorption of all of those potencies which must enter the monadic sphere. Like nothing is ever lost in that way. And he says a very interesting thing about the blessed ones. The blessed ones flash into incarnation. This is their ability to create a Maya Virupa from their level. And so obviously they have all of those abilities that have been absorbed and stored, absorbed by and stored in the permanent atom. So you may be correct about that. It's way beyond, you know, what can be confirmed. All you can do is speculate and say it would be interesting. Well, okay. Let's see if there's somebody. Is there anybody that has a thought or a question on this matter or any matter? There's Elena. She's got her hand up. Hold on. I'll get to her. Okay. Right, Elena, go ahead.
Yes, very interesting what you were talking about. I had some ideas about that, but what I really wanted to bring up is I feel analogy between the 49 inner center of the wheel and the 35 at the periphery. Could there be an analogy to the entry into the ashram? You know, we are standing at the periphery first, and as we are moving towards the center of the ashram, and I see, you know, the ashram is both, you know, individual ashrams, but then there is the hierarchy also as the ashram of Sanat Kumara. So through this process, I see the involvement or influence of the triangles, the astrological triangles particularly, and also I see connection through this whole process of moving through the 7 pillars.
You know? Okay. Yes. Into the ashram. 7 pillars. Yes.
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 So, you know, I am going by the multiplication of the 7, and wherever, you know, is the 7 and 5 involved. You know, we have 7 sacred planets, 5 non-sacred. You know,
yes.
I see the 5 and 7 and multiplication of that 7.
Yes.
And also the involvement of the rays. I see some kind of analogy in this process here. So I wonder
yes.
if you can comment anything about
well, it's a little involved for me to say much other than just sort of register the idea that you are presenting. It you know, because it would be a much higher analogy, of course, than the moving into the ashram, right? But somehow
yes,
it's a moving in a way from the higher aspects of hierarchy into Shambhala. So it is
yes.
And meanwhile, it's a movement from mastership to Nirmanakayaship or Chohanship into the true resident of Shambhala. So I can see that, and I see the larger number up there as being an indication of completion. You know, in other words, the way numbers move, they become both simpler and more complex the higher you go, and the same as you move down. So in a way, you contain all potencies, i.e. the 49, when we reach the highest level, and yet it's all one thing. So the unification factor is strongest, so the numbers are smallest, and the number of potencies that can be handled are largest, and so the number is largest. And I can agree with you that there is an analogy sort of from moving to the human stage, into the disciple stage, into the hierarchical stage. It's a 1, 2, 3 process. A higher analogy up here, moving from higher hierarchy into Chohanship, into Shambhalaship, if I may call it that. So yes. I do agree that there is an analogy. Now, as far as what the number 35 means, it is a Brahmic number, but very, very high Brahmic number. The number 42 is transitional. And the number, yeah?
You know, there's always inversion of the higher to the lower.
Exactly. There is an inversion.
So,
this stanza.
We can make an inversion of the higher 35 atomic number to the lower. You know, what I meant. That the higher analogy, I see the analogy from the higher to the lower.
Okay, so what is the lower 35 for you?
Well, if we look, you know, where I've got the book here, if we look even at the chart in astrology book, you know, between the hierarchies,
yes,
on the atomic plane. You know, we have always the relation between 5 and 2. For example, that's the first relationship, you see?
Yeah. But the 5 and 7 is a very important relationship with sacred and non-sacred planets, with hierarchies, in music, you know,
yes.
It's always found. And also, yeah, go ahead.
There are different analogies which we can make, you know,
yes.
Either 5-7, 5-2. It depends from which aspect we can look at it and what we are looking for.
Okay.
I am only bringing this like I know there is a 5-2 analogy,
Yes.
And there is with the number 5-7 analogy.
Yes. These things suggest themselves to us, and obviously good ideas pop into the mind, and then we have to somehow develop them. I think,
Yes,
you could develop that, I think better than I could, and just, bring it forward. That's the purpose of this kind of study, because it's so intuitively demanding, but things do fall in, and then like Alice Bailey said when she was writing for the Tibetan, there was a lot of stuff that never got into Cosmic Fire. She just saw these huge glimpses as he began to, talk about what he was talking about. She saw more. And it's the same with the stanzas here. Okay, well, look, I tell you what, I'm just going to ask anybody, thank you for that, Ellen. I'm just going to ask anybody else if there's any other thing that anyone wants to say. Where the class is coming back together now. Okay, here's Timothy, Morya. Okay, Tim, gotcha. Go ahead.
Yes, Michael.
Yes.
I wrote you some questions. Can you see it?
Can I see it? Okay, wait a second. Hold on. Okay. Oh my God, this is a big question. Oh, heavens. I want to speak about the 4 gates or etheric centers in the brain and the 4 lower head centers of SK, or the planetary logos, and also in regards to the grand heavenly man. What are your thoughts? Well, okay. Look, are you going to be around later today?
Yeah, anytime, Michael.
Well, here's the thing. You're on the East Coast, right? So
Yes.
you're on the East Coast. So I'm trying to see if I can copy your question. I'm not doing too well with that. I would like to be able to copy it. 7 hours, around 11 o'clock in your morning, we're going to have a chance for people to say a few things on the basis of what has emerged here. So if you would like to prepare, see, people can't really talk more than a couple, 3 minutes. But if you would like to prepare a little something along this line, and you're going to be present, I can open it up to you so you can, just give your thoughts on this matter if you would like. Like I say, if we have a more normal webinar that's not a class, we can do more interactively. But here we can only do it at the end. There's a lot of, I'm kind of reviewing what you're saying here, and it's just too much for me to do off the top of my head, but maybe you have some thoughts here, and then they can...
All right, thank you, Michael. We could later if we have time.
If I tell you what, long about 11 o'clock your time in Boston, or wherever you are now, we're going to open it up to the people in the group, and if you have a few minutes worth of a statement along the line of your question, we'd be all happy to hear it. Is that okay?
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, very good, Morya. We'll talk to you a little bit later. Okay, friends, thank you for your thoughts. That's really those are interesting questions, Maori. Interesting questions. All right. Now we will go on, and the class is back. It's really raining outside, isn't it? It's really what a day. Whoa. Okay. I'm echoing here, so I'm going to have to put you on mute. Okay, that should help. Absolutely. Fascinating questions, everybody, and observations, all 3. Thank you. Now, going on, the wheel of life still moves within the form. The devas of the 4th connect with the 35 and blend them with the central 49. Now, this is a little bit enigmatic. Obviously, we've had the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. When we're talking about the 4th, I suppose, doesn't it suggest to us, the first thing it suggests to me is the devas of the Buddhic plane and the 4th great sphere. What about you? Does that seem reasonable? We really need to go over this in an interactive webinar, but for me, he is descending through the planes. And it's pretty obvious that the 35 is the rim, and the monadic level is the exchange of colored flames, and the logoic level is the 49. So I think we have reached the fourth. It looks like it. Let's see. So I think that from the solar logoic perspective, the form may be considered at this time the entire cosmic physical plane. I'm going to have to, if I have some of you off of mute, I'm going to have to put it on mute, otherwise we get that echo. That should help. Sorry, Elena. There you go. I think that helps. It's just the way GoToWebinar is set up. May we presume that the devas of the fourth, and I shouldn't say 35, I should say number 28. We seem to be 7 times 4 is 28, and DK does talk about the 28 groups of souls that are found on the Buddhic plane. 35 on the higher mental plane, 28 on the Buddhic plane. Of course, he doesn't give us the subplane. And then 14 on the atmic plane. So I think the number 28 may be worth thinking about. Devas of the fourth, number 28. Maybe. We seem to have a reversal of the ways the groups are usually numbered. I talked about that. But here's the question. How can the devas of the fourth serve as intermediaries between the 35 and the central 49? Now, something just flashed into my mind. In other words, we have a lower group of fires, of which there are fewer, and they're having to do with the Buddhic plane, and yet it says that they connect the 35 and blend them with the central 49. Are they capable of doing that? That is a question, because they are relatively lower. So one thing that just flashed into my mind, and it's a peculiar idea, is what is the fourth? But what really are the devas of the fourth? And I just thought of a connection to the monadic plane. Now, it may not be that rational. But what is the origin of the fourth creative hierarchy? What is its, on the cosmic physical plane, what is the placement of this hierarchy, which could make it an intermediary between the 35 and the 49? Wow, we're really having a storm, huh? Okay. In other words, what is the fourth? Well, we could talk about, maybe it's the fourth plane. But then, I have the problem in my mind as to how they could possibly be capable of intermediaryship on the monadic level. It seems too high. But what if we're speaking about the fourth as the fourth creative hierarchy? And what if we're talking about man as a deva? Because on the monadic plane, the deva and human evolutions merge. Whereas they harmonize themselves, I forget the exact quote, they harmonize themselves on the Buddhic plane, and they encounter each other, so to speak, on the astral plane. What if we're talking about monadic mediatorship here? What if we're talking about the monads whose home is on the monadic plane, the fourth creative hierarchy, having their monads on the monadic plane in some sort of mediatorship between the 49 and the 35. It's very speculative, but I'm looking for a way to justify the capacity to mediate between the atmic plane and the logoic plane. And the only thing I can find up there is the divine builders or the human monad. Well, okay, you may be correct about that, except I don't see that word. If that word were there, then from the plane of harmony, the devas of the fourth would... See, these are Agni-Suryans. The devas of the Buddhic plane are Agni-Suryans, the higher, the essence of Buddhi, as we read. The devas of the fourth connect with the 35 and blend them with the central 49. It is such a lofty task. It's almost like, wait a second. It's almost like, wait a second. I'm getting it. Wait a second. I'm getting something on this. This is like the Nirmanakayas. They have a mediating function. I'm going to have to be very careful. I'm getting the echo. Sorry to have to mute you all, but otherwise it really echoes. I'll unmute you later. The Nirmanakayas are great mediators. And I'm wondering if in any way they can be connected in their function with the monadic plane. Okay, I just have some speculations, and so probably do we all, but we'll have to leave that in that indeterminate condition for a little while and see. It's not the main point anyway. Let's just say that these colored bands of light, these colored flames, are mediating between the 35 and the 49. And it says that the devas of the fourth do the same thing. So we have to figure out what are the devas of the fourth. We have the Buddhic plane. We have the fourth grade of hierarchy. And the question is, can that level of being reach to that high mediatorship position? All right. But the main point is, above they work, seeking to merge the whole. So these devas of the fourth, whatever they are working on the merging of the entire process, maybe bringing the entire cosmic physical plane together. Okay, of course, in reflection of second ray, they would be merging devas too. Yes, they would be. What are the devas on the monadic plane, and can they be considered of the fourth, or would they be of the second? We have also to consider the role, of the fourth grade of hierarchy, whose home is on the monadic plane. Okay. Upward they... Now, I'll tell you what, it really is the devas of the Buddhic plane, because he has worked his way down, plane by plane. And now he's going to deal with entities who live within the dense physical body of the Solar Logos. So he continues on his way down. So we somehow have to find out how devas of the fourth can mediate between Atma and the logoic plane, if that is a correct assumption. All right, now here is a rather convoluted form of English. Upward they strive, who in their myriad forms revolve within the wheels of lesser magnitude. Now, what are the wheels of lesser magnitude and perhaps slower motion? And really, we're looking at the 7 solar planes, I think. Fundamentally, we seem to be dealing with great plane wheels, and the wheels of lesser magnitude, to me, at this time, at my present level of ignorance, suggest the 3 lower systemic or solar planes. lesser forms living in these lesser wheels are striving upward toward their archetypal attractors. That's a lot of us. So many forms, so many lives buried in the lesser kingdoms of nature, including the human, striving upwards towards the cosmic ether, which I oftentimes think is like, as I've said, you're underwater, which in water is matter, with the 3 lower levels, and finally when you reach the Buddhic plane, you breathe. The analogy to me is you've seen these divers, and suddenly without any air, they're down 50 feet or whatever, and they have to reach the surface. And you slowly see them rising towards the surface, and you see the air as it gets brighter and brighter until they break the water and then gasp for air. That's how I look at aspiration towards the Buddhic plane. Does that make sense? Because we're underwater, and water is matter. We are drowning on the lower 3 levels, the lower levels of the cosmic physical plane. And, it's so interesting that the very first of the cosmic ethers is called the plane of air. So it kind of suggests to you the life of God as we get in Formula 1. The life of God is air. Okay, so we see the lives imprisoned in the dense physical body of the solar logos and planetary logos, striving towards the cosmic etheric planes. Okay, it goes on to say the whole is one, yet on the lower spheres only forms appear. Now, if we look at the Hindu name or the Sanskrit name for form and formless, what do we have? The Hindu name for form and formless, what is it? Sat Chit and Ananda Nama Rupa, right? Those are the 5-pointed star. So it's Sat Chit Ananda Nama Rupa. It's called the Rupa levels, right? So here we are. The lower spheres are called Rupa or form. And then we've heard of Arupa or Arupa. And what does it mean? A is the privative. Take it away. Formless. Okay. So now we're looking at the planes of form. What are the planes of form? Well, the whole cosmic physical plane is a plane of form, obviously. But we talked about patterns of energy versus, how does he call that? Not aggregation, congestion. He says that what we call matter is really a congestion of these lower energies. And that's why it appears to us to be so dense. So we're down here in the world of congestion. The world of becoming is a world of congestion, and even the lower mental forms, even the causal form, it's dense by comparison. It's called Rupa because it's a denser form. On the higher levels of the cosmic physical plane, it's called Arupa because it's still a form, but it is a more refined, patterned energy form. Here we are down here, and you look around in these worlds, what do you see? Everything is form. That's what he says. Yet on the lower spheres, only the form appears. And if we were going to look on the astral plane, we're told, and our experience tells us, it's just filled with changing fluid forms. And if we would go to the mental plane, the same thing is the case. Some of these psychics describe the mental aura of man as filled with many concrete thought forms. So only form appears, and yet the whole is one. And that's what we have to grasp. How do we solve the problem of the one and the many? Somehow in our consciousness, we have to be able to do that. So we are speaking of developments within the world of form, which from the cosmic perspective, which is also the solar logoic perspective, are occurring on the cosmic physical plane. Remember, our planetary logos is a cosmic being, even though it's systemic. Our solar logos is a cosmic being, though head of the solar system. So these beings that we normally talk about have a cosmic stretch. Why are they cosmic beings? Where's their causal body? Where's the causal body of the solar logos? You know this. Somewhere in cosmos. Okay. Is it on lower cosmos or higher cosmos? Somewhere in cosmos. Yes, yes, yes. On the what plane? The causal body of the planetary logos is on what plane? You know this. Cosmic mental plane. The causal body of the solar logos is on a different level of the cosmic mental plane. So these are cosmic beings. And Sanat Kumara is a cosmic being. You know, is a solar angel a cosmic being? Well, it's somehow part of that causal body of the solar logos, but I have a feeling, as I've often said, that the monadic nature of the solar angel is really on the cosmic astral plane. I believe that its vehicles or whatever principles it has and so forth, it's coming down on the cosmic physical plane for really redemptive purposes, but it's already been to the cosmic astral plane. And I have a feeling that its monadic nature is found on the monadic level of the cosmic astral plane. So anyway, what's going on here? Because all is one to a certain form of isolated unity of perception. Isolated unity, we perceive that oneness, no matter how many are the many. The multiplicity of forms cannot hide the fact that the life of all the spheres and of all the forms is one life. Now that's the point. In this big fusion process, it is revealed that the life of all the spheres and all the forms is one life. They seem in their divisions more than can be grasped or met. We're talking about heat, aren't we? No. Some people have said that Finn is trying to freeze us out, but it's not true. He's got too much second ray to do that. Okay, so all these forms, have you ever felt overwhelmed? Like when studying this stuff? It says, all these forms, seem in their divisions more than can be grasped or met. It's overwhelming, isn't it? So you have to somehow have the thread that leads you to the one. And this is the rending of the blinding veil, the clear pronouncing of the truth and practice right, will render to the Blessed One that golden thread which will provide release from all the maze of earth existence. That's the Blessed One for Ray 3. You need the golden thread to lead to the one. We need to retrace our path along the emanative path by which we descended. And that's the only way we won't be overwhelmed by all of these divisions. So great is the diversity of lives upon the planes of the solar system that the mind is just overwhelmed and cannot grasp it. So we need to eventually, Rule 9, we need to hide all difference and blot out all form. Now that's not, that's a big demand, and it's obviously an initiatory demand. We go on. The many circulate. Well, obviously they do. And why is that? The many, we're talking about all these forms on the lower planes. How is it that the many circulate? Everything's moving. The plane is moving. The plane is rotating east to west. Everything, even it can probably, there may be circulation within the plane, but even if things are held relatively in relation to each other, the plane is moving. So everything circulates. Everything's in movement. Movement is forever, except that it's not. I mean, paradox lies at the root of everything. Boundless, immutable principle. If there is immutability, there's no movement. And yet, perpetual motion has existed forever. So right there, you have the paradox. The many circulate, the forms are built. Now, I like this. This summarizes the whole thing. The forms are built, become too firm, are broken by the life that inner rapidly rotating wheel that says, take more, take more, take more, and the brittle form resists it, and can't stretch and cracks and circulate again. The many circulate, the forms are built, become too firm, are broken by the life, and circulate again. So this is the process by which life makes form ever more adequate, because form just can't hold the life. So it does the best it can, and then life has to say, so you're not holding enough yet, crack, break it all down, reformulate the form, a more adequate form, hold a bit more life, a bit more of the potential. So this is the story how this constant movement in cosmos is ever refining the form. Like friction refines. This constant changing of relationship, movement relative to each other. Oh, now I have to relate to you. Now I have to relate to you. Before you know it, everything relates to everything. And in that process, refinement comes. So constant motion, as is the life of Fohat. Fohat's the active one, right? The great occult personality Fohat. The second aspect builds the forms. The forms are in constant motion, as is the life of Fohat. The third aspect of divinity hardens the forms. The first aspect of divinity breaks the forms. So the builder of the form is the second. It's kind of interesting that the third aspect is involved with both flexibility and brittleness. Both. Constant movement of the third aspect and yet crystallization. So Fohat is hardening. We say Saturn is involved in this, in our world. And maybe Vulcan too, to a degree. The Vulcan the shatterer, but maybe Saturn the crystallizer. Saturn is involved in this. So there is mobility with Fohat, and its fire also causes rigidity. It's kind of interesting, really, because, there is a paradox with Saturn, It has this first ray quality to it. It holds things, and it has also the mobility part. And Fohat has three aspects. So does Eros. So does the first aspect. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they all have three aspects to them. So maybe we're talking about, perhaps, we are talking about the first aspect of Fohat causing rigidity. And not the, how do you spell that? And not the third aspect of it. Because DK tells us Brahma is in Vishnu and Shiva, Vishnu is in Brahma and Shiva, Shiva is in Vishnu and Brahma. So it's a 9. Every 3 is threefold, and we talked about that in relation to the triad. Anyway, we do know that the first ray causes death through crystallization. And yet we're told that Fohat is the hardener, and yet Fohat is Brahma is the third ray. So it may be the first aspect of Fohat that is involved here. But we get, all we really need is the generalities. Forms are built. Forms are hardened. Forms are shattered. And then everything is sent back to the reservoir, and then that's death. And forms are built, forms are hardened, forms are shattered, and meanwhile the life keeps on being more and more expressive. You kind of wonder about the reason for death, and maybe you've noticed as you've gotten older that your body is not as flexible as it was before, and that there is more rigidity. Things seem to be hardening up a bit. Saturn takes over. Even, hardening of the arteries and, ossification and the joints get creaky and things don't move and so forth. Well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be threatening here. Okay. I'm sure that you're just as young as you ever were, essentially. But, and here's this inner life, in a way, becoming more and more as you concentrate upon it, and as the soul becomes more successful in making the inner vehicles really vibrate. And here's the outer form becoming more resistant. Well, you know, you're between a rock and a hard place. Something's got to give. And essentially, the inner vehicles are tougher. They're not going to give. The outer form is going to give. So that may be one of the beneficent aspects of death. You know, if you live in a small hovel made out of sod with smoke on the inside, and you know the way people used to live and so forth, and you compare it to a great spacious open house overlooking the ocean with the mountain behind you, you know, the kind of things you have on the Devachanic plane, real estate on the Devachanic plane. You don't want to forever live in that sod house, do you? Of course, there's a big transition, you know. The big place is many houses away from the original. So death is breaking down that which prevents the expression of the spirit, which is containing the purpose of it all. And this whole story is about that. The few, now, here's the next sentence. The few revolve, holding the many in the heat of motion. And we know the relationship between heat and motion, right? From chemistry or physics, what do we know regarding heat and motion? How many of us have ever taken chemistry or physics? I'm so sorry. I think that, yeah, this is not the chemistry physics group, is it? No, no. One day, occasionally, a fifth-rate type wanders into these groups and may stay for a while. But anyway, with the gas, let's say the hotter the gas, the faster the molecular activity, right? So basically, the hotter something is, the faster it goes. And of course, on the inner planes, you're always moving towards that central heat more and more. Now, the few revolve. What are the few? What's revolving? Well, okay, the planes, the subplanes, in the macrocosmic sense, even in the microcosmic sense, okay, the monadic vehicle revolves. Okay, the causal body revolves. Okay, the mental body, the astral body, those are the few. But inside those vehicles are all these forms we've created, right? So the few are revolving, and they're taking the many little forms we've created along with them. So I think that's what it means. There's only revolutions of a few. Now, do they mean, you know, I would like to think that he means rotate here. But the word revolve is much more poetic somehow. It has a better sound to it. So maybe that's the reason. You have to revolve around something, but you rotate on your own axis. Mostly, I think this means rotate. But even if it means revolve, there can be the whole Earth revolving around the sun, taking all the many forms with it, just a few planets. There can be all these stars, maybe just 7, 9, 10, something, revolving around the Pleiades, but taking all these forms with them. And motion is caused by heat. Now, theoretically, at absolute zero, there's no movement. Nobody's ever approximated. I mean, they get closer and closer to absolute zero, inducing absolute zero, but they can't do it. Somehow, something prevents reaching that point where there is no motion. Because everything is in motion forever, except when it isn't. Okay. So the few revolve and take the many, many forms with them. And through the revolving and the rotating, refinement occurs through friction. Okay, now, I'll just get you in a minute here, Ann. Refinement occurs through friction due to circulation and collision and relationships which have to be adjusted. Okay, so you were going to say, Ann, go ahead. The heart of the hotter the faster. Yes. 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 Locomotive. If you think about a Führer, yes. The cooler the faster. Yes. No. No. But generally in the laws of thermodynamics, when you heat matter, the vibration of the atoms is faster. And the circulation is faster. You know, like if you heat a gas, everything's going all over the place. And when it cools down, there's much less circulation. It's been a long time since I studied this stuff, but that's the general principle. And when you heat a gas, it expands. And when you cool it, it contracts. So in general, the hotter, the faster. And when you think about rising through the planes, well, you know, you can call it the clear cold light, but the vibration is certainly increasing. And so I suppose that means we're approaching the central fire closer and closer. Now, the limit of that would be a vibration so fast that everything is still. In other words, it approximates infinity, no movement at all. But that never happens. So we are basically talking about the ray of activity. The one embraces all, the one and the many, and carries all from great activity to the heart of cosmic space. So it's as if we are moving from the rapid third aspect of divinity. This whole thing has been about rotation, constant movement, constant refinement. What's the use of all the activity if there's no refinement going on? But the inner wheels refine the outer wheels and help them approach closer to the archetype. And in all of the many, the one is holding steady and is carrying all the great activity, which is of the third ray and of Brahma and of Fohat. You know, when you think of Brahma, you think of Fohat. They're in constant movement. Even the Holy Spirit carries all from great activity into the heart of cosmic peace. Now, that's such a blend of aspects other than the third, isn't it? If you look at the heart of cosmic peace, that's a blend of the second and first aspects, isn't it? We are talking about we're saying, look at all this movement. Here's how it operates. What's it for? What does it do? Where does it end? And that's what this stanza is all about. It finally leads to rest. Now, you know, again, I think of Shambhala, I think of the Logoic plane, and I think of Libra. Aries through Libra up to Shambhala, the royal road to Shambhala. Aries, Leo, Great Bear, Shambhala. Aries, Libra, Great Bear, Shambhala. It ends itself in the center, the only true center of peace, which is Shambhala. And when I think of the heart of cosmic peace, Libra is a reflector of that. And yet Libra is also a sign of great activity through the third ray. So we're talking about the purpose of activity and its resolution into peace. And I think I'll just put that down. Sort of the purpose of activity and let's just say systemic activity and its resolution into peace. Now, we can think of the microcosmic perspective of this. What happens in the causal body as the fourth initiation approaches? Does it become colder and less active? You know, in other words, you know, what does this say? The heavens are consumed in fervent heat. That kind of statement. Everything is hotter, everything is faster, everything is rotating until there's this great conflagration which leads finally to a moment of suspension, and the heavens melt with fervent heat, and finally the peace is achieved and all is accomplished and consummated. So you can think of microcosmic perspectives in your own life. And now we're talking about the life of the Solar Logos as he expresses himself on the cosmic physical plane. Okay, are there any... We have reached the end of this stanza. I know that nobody realizes it, but we we have reached the end. What is suggested to us? What is suggested? Maybe again, we need to read the whole. It's not long. Just open your intuition. The wheel of life turns within the wheel of outer form. It's like the monad, the causal body, turning within the personality nature of the human being or of the being on the cosmic physical plane. The matter of Fohat circulateth, and its fire hardeneth all the forms. The wheel is not glimpsed, the wheel that is not glimpsed moveth in rapid revolution within the slower outer case, till it weareth out the form. There's certainly no permanence in any of this. The 49 fires burn at the inner center, representing all the potentials of the cosmic physical plane. The 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle or periphery. And between the two passeth in ordered sequence the various colored flames. At least 7, maybe 42. The great triangles in Shambhala, in their just arrangement, hold hid the secret of the wheel of life. It's almost like, Shambhala is a chakra. I think, that should be, well, I'll just remind me. Hid the secret of the wheel of life. The cosmic fire radiates as directed from the second sphere, controlled by the ruler of the merging ray. The cohorts of the third encircling sphere in varied ranks mark out the lesser threes. Lesser triangles responding to the greater ones. The wheel of life still moves within the form. The devas of the fourth connect with the 35, and blend them with the central 49. Above they work, seeking to merge the whole. They work from the higher planes. Upward they strive, who in their myriad forms revolve within the lesser wheels, the wheels of lesser magnitude. The whole is one, yet on the lower spheres only the forms appear. They seem in their divisions more than can be grasped or met. The many circulate, the forms are built, become too firm, are broken by the life, and circulate again. The few revolve, holding the many in the heat of motion. The one embraces all and carries all from great activity into the heart of cosmic peace. And of course, I overlooked the obvious. The heart of cosmic peace is pralaya, isn't it? How all activity ends in pralaya. That's what we're talking about. So I have to put that down. And what was the other thing I was talking about and said I would get back to it? Do you remember? I forget, unfortunately. So it's all about the great activity in any system and how it ends in perfect balance. Now, the balance of pralaya is Venus, is Libra, and pralaya itself is Pisces. The end of the story. Interestingly enough, both ruled by Venus, which is not a planet of great activity, it's a planet of magnetic attraction and right and beautiful arrangement. So what is suggested to us here? What have we learned? What thoughts come to our mind as we study this rather short, very abstract stanza? about activity, its purpose, and its end. The thing that comes to my mind is that you can apply this to your own life, to higher lives, and on and on. It seems to me that every small sphere has its place of peace, and then it moves on. Yes, yes, this particular stanza has a lot of analogical applicability. But, I've been struggling. I mean, obviously it's got its microcosmic meaning. It really seems to apply to the cosmic physical plane, but why stop there? From a certain point of view, the entire cosmic physical plane is being refined by the more rapid rotations of the cosmic astral body, cosmic mental body, cosmic causal body of the greater logoi. Let's just say that portion of the cosmic physical plane which is called the solar system and which is appropriated by our solar logos is the slowest of the wheels. Now, let's look at, that just reminds me of something. There is a rate of rotation of the entire cosmic physical, that's Capricorn, sorry, cosmic physical atom. He says about 100,000 years. He says your mathematics won't give it to you. It's too complicated, but it's roughly in the neighborhood. The rotation of the cosmic atom of the solar logos is about 100,000 years. Now, that is the entire solar system. And I somehow am thinking that even the subtler parts of it are rotating as well. And somehow within that, there is the cosmic astral body and the cosmic mental body and so forth of the solar logos and even higher. And one of the things that really strikes me about this stanza is that refinement is coming from the inside out. That is, I think that's a principle I can go away with. Refinement is coming from the inside out. The outer forms cannot take the pressure of the faster inner rotation and wear out. And yet in the process of being worn out, refinement occurs. And therefore, the next time you take a form, it is more suitable. I suppose, obviously it's possible to devolve, to go down in evolution. Some people head into the animal state. You can go either way, but in general, the way it's intended to go is that your inner psychological spiritual life gets ever more brilliant and is causing impacts upon the outer form. If you devolve. When you say if you devolve, well, okay, let me be more specific by what I mean by devolution. I don't mean becoming weaker and subject to gravity, which we all are. I mean a deliberate moral choice to pursue a way of life which leads you towards the animal. That's what I mean. Yes. But I say that Venus is involved in this process. Well, you must have had a reason for saying so. So what is your thought about that? Yes. Yes. And the fact that Venus leads to perfect relationship at the end of a long struggle. So is Venus involved? I would say so in that respect. In other words, why is it that Venus is exalted in Pisces? Venus leads to perfect archetypal relationship at the end of a long struggle. So Venus in Pisces is exalted, and it represents consummation of an intended task. The solar angels came, they fell in Virgo, they were subjected to material processes, they lived in a foreign world where matter was reigning. Let matter reign in Virgo. Venus falls, and at the end of the day, they rise, exalted in Pisces, because they have redeemed, as they intended to, matter, and the matter of their man, so to speak. The human being they have under supervision. The human being begins as a very crude, monstrous, not monstrous, but immense form. DK talked about the ill-favored human beings of the early day, and Blavatsky talked about their massive size, and a solar angel basically has to tackle that. Even some of them actually incarnating in those forms, becoming the god kings of the early days. So that was a very, very great sacrifice. But at the end of the day, they do rise into a state of exquisite refinement. In other words, the master, the liberated human being, is extremely refined when compared to how it started out. And that's the work of Venus. Venus is the great refiner. So, you know what reminds me when I think about this? Venus, the refiner, and this comes to me. He is like a refiner's fire. It's in the Messiah. It's from the Old Testament. It's speaking of God, for he is like a refiner's fire. And who shall stand when he appeareth? I know the melody, I can't think of the words. But who shall abide the day of his coming? In other words, it's the appearance of God, which is such a fire that the form cannot stand it. And yet, slowly, through rotation, refinement occurs. In other words, you can't get a straight blast, you know. That's the reason for a cycle. Okay, I want to give you something, so I just throw it right at you. You can't absorb it, and you fall apart. But if there is a cyclic bestowal, a little bit at a time, in cycles, then you can assimilate. So the reason for cycles is to facilitate assimilation. Cycles facilitate assimilation. And we're talking about all of these turns. Everything is turning in this stanza. And as a result, we get a consummation at the end of entering into pralaic peace, because all has been refined to the point where entry can occur. All has been harmonized at the end. You enter into pralaic peace. I think it's a very beautiful stanza. Difficult in some ways. You know, what starts out being difficult is the fact that it's difficult to nail exactly what we mean by the wheel of life. Although the wheel of life, in a certain respect, is the monad. And we do even have something called the monadic wheel, which has to do with the descent of the jiva from the monad on a divine pilgrimage in a circular fashion. So there's a great revolution, and that's in that respect. A cycle is created. But we are also given the sort of metaphysical or inner physical idea that spheres rotate with respect to each other, and they refine each other because they rotate. And the faster they rotate, the more refining effect they have on the outer form, unless they rotate too fast. See what I mean? It's adjustment, right? So that's why Master Morya says you have to speak proportionately to the person you're talking to. Because if you speak in such a way that there's no possibility of any rapport, only disruption will result, either that or rebuff. So we have to, in other words, we have to adjust our speed to others. Is it possible at all for anyone to reach pralaic peace through meditation? Is it possible to reach prolonged peace through meditation? Yeah, well, degrees of it, wouldn't you say? Well, in other words, how should we define it? Our next pralaya, our next real pralaya, except for dying periodically, is the fourth initiation. So obviously meditation is a great help in that. And then comes another pralaya. You destroy the higher correspondence to the causal vehicle on the upper atmic plane and enter into life as a true monad. There's some metaphysical structure up there, some hinted at in many, not many, but hinted at, and hinted at in Masonry as well, a structure which stands at the top of the Brahmic planes. And a master maybe finds his way into that, just the way a third-degree initiate finds his way into the causal body. And then the master has to destroy that in some way and enter into the higher temple of Ezekiel. So these are pralayas, you know, of a kind. I'll bet when we finally leave the cosmic physical plane and we go through something called the divine refusal, there's another pralaya. So a pralaya is a state of temporary suspension after a great exertion of activity leading to release. And, you know, pralaya, you know, the planet will disappear. It will enter into pralaya. The sun will disappear. The whole universe will disappear. So it's always activity and rest, activity and rest. The whole idea that we awaken and go to sleep is simply an outer reflection of something that is inescapable. There's a time when the whole universe is asleep. The question is it dreaming? I mean, you know, what's going on? I mean, it's an absurd question, actually, but you say, well, what's going on in the absolute, you know? It shows a lack of understanding in a way, but you do kind of wonder, is nothing really nothing? And when you're asleep, is it a dreamless sleep? When all that is asleep, is it dreamless? Or is it some supreme state of bliss such as happens to people on occasion when they go into their own causal body at night? It was said we are returning to the body of bliss at night after various experiences of different kinds on the different lower levels. Yeah, actually, DK, in describing dreams, said that the root of the word, was it an old Anglo-Saxon word or something that indicated both harm and great happiness or bliss? Both. Probably both are correct. So, you know what we'll do before we leave, now, not that I necessarily know that we're going to be able to do all of these stanzas. Now, we've done, in quotes, 7. And we will do the stanza on color today also, and maybe another. And if we get 2 more stanzas finished today, we will have done 9, which will leave only 4 for tomorrow, including, well, but of course we can just knock off stanza number 1, right? The secret of fire is hidden in the second letter of the sacred word. Actually, I have about 80 or 90 pages on that, but I think it would be better to just interpret it without being too exacting. I think we can deal with that in fairly short order because we studied it once before. So we're certainly ready to understand it. But then stanza number 10 is very historically demanding. It's like taken out of the Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, dealing with the Great War in Atlantis and the coming of the Black Lodge and all of that. You kind of wonder why that's here. Because we're dealing usually with cosmic creation and individualization and these processes that involve higher beings and so forth. And then he comes right down into historical humanity. That's my project for tonight. And if I can get Philip, it would be nice to do. We're supposed to go at 1:45, aren't we? Something like that. Is there anybody in the electronic group who would like to say anything about this stanza. You're welcome to if you would like to. We have just a few minutes. Any insights about it that you would like to share with the group? Obviously, we haven't even nailed the nature of the wheel of life. The wheel of consciousness seems to be quite related to the causal body. But there are really three wheels which are turning. Although he does tell us something about the causal body, which is very interesting. He says the jewel in the lotus does not rotate. It pulsates. In other words, we have the 9 petals moving in one direction, we have the 3 inner petals moving in another direction, and the jewel in the lotus pulsates its energy. So I suppose there is an analogy here to what this wheel of life can be. The wheel of consciousness versus the wheel of form, to me, suggests the various rotations of the causal body in relation to the rotation of the lunar vehicles. That's one example of 2 different wheels rotating. But that's not yet the wheel of life. I can't help but think that the monadic wheel is somehow eventually involved as the ultimate refiner. You know how DK tells us if you take a magnifying glass and you hold it up to the sun and then you burn something, and every kid does that, with autumn leaves or whatever, you'll get the idea of what it's like when the monad focuses on the personality through a burning glass. Okay, we have one, Andrew from Australia has raised his hand. Andrew, we got you. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can indeed, Andrew, yes.
Great. Hello, everyone. Michael, just some thoughts that have been going through my mind because I've been thinking a lot in aggregates, as I explained in my email to you,
Yes.
that things seem to have a time element to them.
Okay.
And if I was thinking of Plato's ideas of the archetypes, I could picture something that was a sphere. I think he actually mentions that the archetypes are spherical.
Sphere.
This is because if you rotate something in all the possible possibilities of it, it becomes a sphere.
Okay. Yes.
And so basically any sort of wheel seems to be all the possible possibilities of something.
Yes, good point. A wheel has all the possibilities of something. Yes, okay, yes. That's why the sphere seems to be our symbol for completion in our worlds. So, but
Yes.
each one of these spheres has its own limitation, and hence its own diameter.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And we can see this in astrology because we can sort of look at how as the different circles rotate, they impress upon our natal positions, for instance, if we're talking about natal astrology, over and over in a cyclic manner, like the hammer blows of a Vulcan, sort of
Yes.
like, against an anvil. And the other thing, too, that I've been thinking about is that the smaller, relatively smaller sort of forms have a more rapid vibration. For instance, atoms and subatomic particles have a very, very rapid vibration, which basically the impressions seem to be, more numerous and therefore creates more of a permanency in those particular sort of forms.
Yes. Yes.
And the larger types of forms rotate more slowly or vibrate more, sort of like at you know, a rate which doesn't impress us
Yes.
In our lifetime, but it would in our causal body, for instance.
Yes.
So I've been looking
Yes.
at it in terms of relativity of these time frames or these wheels.
Yes, it's good, and it kind of leads us into the paradox of these inner, more permanent structures seen as if they are in more rapid rotation. Of course, I've sometimes wondered about relative sizes of things. I speculated on the idea of the egoic lotus. We oftentimes see what we consider to be the radiation of the causal body as extending through all aspects of the normal aura and beyond. But I wonder whether at the heart of it all, we're not dealing with the tiniest of structures. In other words,
Yes.
the more powerful things get, the smaller they get as we begin to approximate a point.
Yes.
So ultimately, the monad is, a being is ultimately called a point. So often he deals with that, and it's almost like the more powerful, the smaller, but the radiation more extensive. So
Yes.
essentially, you can follow that out as to what it would mean in the universal context. Anyway, I think we need to get some of these rates and measures down so we can understand some of the kinds of impacts that you talked about, the hammer blows.
Okay.
There's also this question of the octavization of slow cycles. For instance, they now have recordings from NASA and other places where very long cycles had been octavized, doubled, until they come into the auditory range of the human being. And we can kind of appreciate them in a way that we couldn't if the impacts are as slow as they normally would be. And some of those oscillations have to be so slow that our lifetime would elapse many times before even the next impact came. But octavization is a very interesting idea. I've listened to some of the NASA things, like on Uranus, or I don't know how many planets there are there. Tuya has them, and they're quite effective in creating certain, a certain feeling or certain realization. Anyway, good thoughts, Andrew, and I like to see all these thoughts developed. Obviously, all we can do is mention them at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to say something at this point? We have just a little bit of time. Okay. Maybe not for right now. Let's see, wait a second. I'm going to unmute the, because they can't raise their hands, so I unmute the presenters, or rather staff. Okay. All right, well, look, everyone, we have finished this stanza. I feel about the level 20% achievement, but it's better than nothing. And then we're going to go into this fascinating one on color after lunch. Of course, if Anne is going tomorrow morning for a little while, so we could save it until then. On the other, okay. And I think a very different kind of perspective is going to be drawn in on this next color stanza. Not long, but really demanding the intuition. So may all of you rotate faster and slower as the case may be, and may refinement and prolaic peace at lunch be your destiny. Farewell. That means go and eat. Okay. Okay, folks, we will be gone for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And those of you who can come back and join us, you are certainly welcome. I'm glad we've had the opportunity somehow to focus our minds on these stanzas. It's something that I think I've been avoiding all my life until maybe forced to think about it. And I'm glad in a way that I was not forced to think about it until I had a fair amount of experience with the book Cosmic Fire. Over the last 6 years, there's been a focal study. I've been involved in that and some others on Cosmic Fire, which helps us perhaps gather more of what the meaning might be of these stanzas. It just, it's so daunting in a way, and it's so humbling. And I think that's good. I mean, it just drops the seed of a type of philosophical, intuitive exploration which can be carried on, much better by the higher initiate consciousness. But we will get there, and we're bringing some light onto the subject, hopefully. Still, the wheel of life, I think, has better to be defined. We can call it as the monadic wheel in one respect. We can call it as that which rapidly rotates. Who knows how large the structure is or how large its rotation is? There has to be something at the center of the monad that doesn't rotate, just as the jewel in the lotus does not rotate but pulsates. There has to be something at the center of the monad which only pulsates, but there has to be something as well in its nature of will, wisdom, and activity which does rotate. We're still on the cosmic physical plane, and so there still is form. And those patterns can move relative to each other. Anyway, many questions are open for us, suggested to our minds, and being suggested to our minds, perhaps they will evoke more light and the necessary answer. Okay, so we will, for the time being, turn things off and take an hour and 15-minute break.